Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 4 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 7, Training begins now. High in the skies over North America, specifically over the state of California, a pair of F-15 fighter jets flew through the air at top speed, the pilots of the twin aircraft currently on the lookout for something strange that should not have been out there. Exactly 30 minutes ago, they had detected something entering the atmosphere over their country, and while asteroids and the like were no strangers in the past, this was different. For just as the object broke into the stratosphere, it suddenly changed course so that it was now on a vertical plane, and not going down at all. That certainly counted as strange in their books, so a pair of experienced pilots were quickly dispatched to investigate. Thankfully, these were no ordinary pilots. For on each wing of their F-15 jets, the Sector 7 logo was branded. This special government agency had branches practically all throughout the world, and they all had the same expertise, the investigation and identification of alien life forms. And, after receiving the knowledge of their Japanese branch having found and made allies with actual aliens, the other branches were all informed to keep an eye out for any more strange, robotic lifeforms that could potentially come to Earth, whether they were friend or foe. Soon enough, the pair of jets were almost on top of whatever it was they were pursuing, and one of the pilots managed to zero in on its frequency. Attention unidentified aircraft, you are flying in restricted airspace. The pilot spoke through his radio, attempting to contact the jet. Land and identify yourself or face the consequences. The other pilot narrowed his eyes at the clouds, seeing absolutely nothing as they flew. Bah, this is ridiculous, he said as he shook his head. I can't see a damn thing. And whatever it is, it's not answering back. Oh no. The two pilots gasped as they heard a sinister, metallic voice speak into their headsets. Then perhaps this will constitute for an appropriate answer. Without warning, a green beam suddenly shot out through the clouds above and then hit one of the F-15s, before then scanning it from its nose cone to its rear thrusters. Ah, perfect. After that, the pilots were left astonished as, from the clouds, a gray, red and blue aircraft flew down. Initially, it looked like a triangular-shaped jet, but before their very eyes, it began to shift in shape before assuming the form of an F-15 with blue tail fins and rear thrusters, red and white stripes along the wings, a mostly red underside, and a blue nose cone. Also on the wings were a pair of purple insignias that had plenty of sharp points and triangular, evil eyes, which glared at them as they jet flew sideways alongside them. Well, as perfect as a lowly human aircraft can be, I suppose. Starscream mused as he performed a barrel roll and suddenly began flying behind the other two F-15s. Thank you so much for the new alternate mode, humans. But unfortunately, a pair of missiles suddenly appeared from beneath his wings, his targeting systems locking onto the two aircraft. I cannot have any witnesses. Choom, choom. With a sonic blast that rang throughout the sky, the two missiles fired, though the jets were quick to move out of the way. Unfortunately for them, these missiles were heat-seeking, so it didn't take long for them to start chasing after the jets. And then, thwoom, both F-15s were struck in their fuselages and sent hurtling down to the ground below, though Starscream wasn't paying attention long enough to notice that both pilots had ejected and were falling to the earth safely in their parachutes. Ha ha ha. Oh, excellent. This will do nicely. Ka-thoom. With a burst of speed, Starscream shot off toward the west, ready to fly directly to the nation where the Autobots supposedly were, and apparently where his cohort already was. Barricade, this is Starscream. I have obtained a suitable alternate mode and am on my way to your location. How are you faring? In Japan, meanwhile, Barricade had arrived via the Darkseid's ground bridge, just so he wouldn't have to 1. Make an unpredictable landing in a pod, and 2. Have to land alongside Starscream. Thankfully, he chose his coordinates pretty well as he emerged alongside a rather busy highway. Oh scrap. A busy highway. At this realization, Barricade ducked under the large brush along the side of the road, hoping no one saw him. It was only then that he received Starscream's transmission. Barricade, this is Starscream. I have obtained a suitable alternate mode and am on my way to your location. How are you faring? As well as I can be. Barricade shrugged. Came out near a road, so I can't say I don't have options for an alt mode. Starscream gave an audible sigh. I will never understand why some Decepticons would rather stick to the ground, when they could have flight. What can I say? Barricade smirked. Some of us like the way we look in steel-belted radials. The Decepticon officer scanned his optics along the busy highway, though he was taken aback when he saw a pair of vehicles go rushing past him, with one of them blaring a loud siren while flashing its red light bar. This immediately caught his attention and he took note of the car giving chase to the other one, seeing that it was clearly law enforcement. It was a white and black Datsun Fairlady Z100, and it looked brand new. While the white and black color scheme made his optic twitch in annoyance at the thought of his old chum, he had to admit that the car itself was sleek. And the fact that it was for law enforcement made it all the better. He quickly scanned the vehicle and transformed, his chest, legs and back all shifting as he went into his new vehicle mode. In the end, he was a slick, black Datsun Fairlady Z100 with a dark gray hood and white doors that had the word, police, on them in big bold letters. And to top it all off, along the rear of his car, there was a little blurb in white cursive that said, "To punish and enslave," with the Decepticon insignia right next to it. Oh yeah, now this is what I'm talking about. Barricade chortled before rolling out onto the highway, heading in the opposite direction. Starscream, I've got an alt mode ready to meet up with you. Excellent, now why don't we give those Autobots a proper greeting, Mwahahaha. Good idea. But where can we find them? Spawn of a Meanwhile, halfway across the country, a caravan on Autobots could be seen rolling along the road toward Coruscant, with Bumblebee right in the lead as RC and Jazz followed directly behind. UA's school day had finally concluded, and that meant one thing. It was finally time for the promised training to commence, and the 8 Class 118s couldn't be more ready for it. And of course, May was just as excited to continue tinkering with her new experimental babies to get them ready for the festival as well. Everyone was conversing with excitement before the 3 Autobots turned onto the concealed road through the woods, bringing them to the cape where Outpost Omega-1 was hidden. There, Optimus and the others all stood in waiting, aside from Red Alert, who was no doubt still inside the base. The Autobot trio pulled to a stop, and all at once, the students climbed hastily out of their escorts, all of them carrying backpacks and gym bags with them. Bumblebee, RC and Jazz all transformed and joined their compatriots as Optimus addressed the teens. All right, single file now. The 9 children all lined up before the Autobots, as Optimus stepped forward and cleared his throat. Ahem, welcome children, to your first day of Auto Boot Camp. The students all cheered at that before Prime continued. Over the next 2 weeks, we hope to help you all achieve the best condition possible for the UA Sports Festival. I must warn you now, compared to the training you might be receiving in the school now, this boot camp will be much more difficult. He balled a fist while describing it. It will be grueling, arduous and like going through hell. Mina guessed with an excited smile. Denki's shoulders slumped. Please don't let it be that hard. Eijiro gave his friend a nudge to the shoulder. Don't worry, bro. We've got this. I mean, our class is the one that survived a villain attack. Indeed. Windblade agreed. And while your actions yesterday against the Viacon were less than favorable, she saw the students all visibly wince at her words, so she hastily tried to steer back to her point. Why, you guys all showed ingenuity and teamwork in that situation. If there's anyone who can get through Auto Boot Camp, it's you. That made the kids' smiles all return, though they still seemed a bit unsure. Thank you, Windblade. Momo bowed her head, though I feel like I need to ask, just how will our training be handled? That, I have left up to the Autobots themselves to decide. Prime said as he gestured toward his team. I have set each of you up with an Autobot training partner, and they will help you hone your skills over the next several days. Now, each of you have been granted a separate spot for you and your respective partner to train. Strongarm. Yes, sir. With a raise of her hand, Strongarm brought up a holographic list from her palm, which she immediately began reading off of. Okay, here's the pairings. Momo and Windblade, you two will be taking to the new training room inside of the base. Momo's eyes lit up in intrigue. Oh, you guys managed to set up a whole training room in there. Windblade sent her a nod. Yep, had to remove a ton of defunct assembly lines, but it was worth it. She winked and gave her partner a thumbs up. Now let's get you into creative combat. A smile graced Momo's features as she returned the gesture. Of course, it'd be a pleasure. Strongarm continued as she smiled down to the brunette gravity user. Ochako, I've set you up with RC. She's going to take you over into the woods to do some gravity training. Wow, really? Ochako set a determined grin over to the pink Autobot, raising a fist eagerly. Alright, I'm gonna do my best. And that is what I like to hear. RC crouched down and offered her own fist, which Ochako readily bumped with her own. I look forward to seeing what you can do, Ochako. Denki and Eijiro, Strongarm pointed to the two boys. You guys are with Sunstreaker and the punk, as you might have guessed. Sideswipe furrowed his metal brow in irritation. Oh come on, really? He saw Strongarm smirk as he got up in her face. Do you always have to throw shade at me, even during training? Strongarm merely shrugged. What can I say? It's easy. Her optics focused back on her list, ignoring the nasty look that Sideswipe was glaring at her. Anyways, you four will be training out in the front yard here. Stepping forward, Sunstreaker gave a nod as he set his optics down to the two boys. Sounds like a plan to me. So, you guys ready to get started? Ready, willing and able, guys. Denki saluted. Let's do this thing, Eijiro said with a punch to his palm, hardening his skin in the process. Come on, Sides, don't let Strongarm get to ya now. With a heavy sigh, Sideswipe took his focus away from his rival and smirked down to his partner. Yeah, you're right dude. We got this. Strongarm rolled her optics as she went back to her list. Yeah, sure ya do. In any case, her sights went over to Resident Horned, pink-skinned girl, giving her a nod. Mina, you and Bulkhead will be training on the beach's west side. A gasp was elicited from Mina as she jumped for joy. Woo, yeah, alright, that's just what I've been waiting for. She spun around on her heel and sent Bulkhead an ear-to-ear grin, her fist shaking up and down excitedly. This is gonna be so sweet. I can't wait to see what kinda training you've got in mind for me, Bulk. Hee, alright, calm down, Mina. Bulkhead chuckled, ushering Mina to settle with his hand. There'll be plenty of time to cut loose during training, but let's wait until we're ready, okay? Gotcha. Mina pointed finger guns at him with a wink. But I'm warning ya now, I'm a pretty great crack shot when it comes to my acid. Really? Well, we'll just have to put those big words to the test. As the two bantered, Strongarm shifted her focus down to Kyoka, though she had a feeling the girl already knew the plan she had in mind. Kyoka, I'm sure I don't have to tell you who you will be paired up with. Kyoka smiled knowingly as she wrapped one of her jacks around her finger. Hey, nope, no you don't, she set her eyes over to Jazz, who had set his hands on his hips as he returned the smirk that she was sending him. So Jazz, you finally ready to get down to that sonic training? The Autobot lieutenant shot a pair of finger guns of his own at the punk rocker, clearly anticipating what was about to go down. Oh, you know it, girl. He nudged his head toward the sandy beach not far from the base. You and I will be doing our thing down there on the east side of the beach. Should be far enough away from anything important, so we won't literally bring the house down. Haha. Yeah, that's a good idea. Kyoka laughed. Let's do it. Excellent. Strongarm approved before finally setting her attention to her own training partner. And Iida, you and I will be taking to the nearby field for your training. I hope you've come ready to run. With an instant salute, Iida stood at attention with as serious a face as possible. Of course I have. I've made sure to eat a well-balanced breakfast and lunch in anticipation for this. Good. The field is just a quick drive away, but just to make it interesting, I'm gonna make you run all the way there for a warm-up. If anything, however, this just made Iida's smile increase. Aha. Already testing me, I welcome it. As soon as we all get changed, we'll head out. Excuse me. Izuku raised his hand. But what about me? I mean, I know I must be training with Bumblebee, but... Oh, I'm sorry, Izuku. Strongarm smiled sheepishly. I was so focused on Iida, I nearly forgot. You are paired up with Bumblebee, though, but that's not the only one who'll be coaching you in your training. Izuku couldn't help but blink in confusion at that. Huh. What does that, thump thump? The sound of heavy footsteps alerted Izuku not just to Bumblebee's approach, but Optimus Prime's as well, the Autobot leader looming over him with what the Greenette could only assume was a determined gaze. He had to admit, it was hard getting a read on Optimus most of the time given his faceplate, but at that moment, he couldn't help but feel that Prime must have been smiling toward him. Oh, hi Optimus. Hello, Izuku. Prime returned. I believe that now is the perfect opportunity to have that discussion I mentioned yesterday. Ah, right. I nearly forgot. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. I guess you have a few pointers for how I can handle my quirk. Optimus nodded back down to him. Indeed, and I believe Bumblebee and I will be able to help you accomplish what you want to do. Kyoka stepped over and gave him a nudge in the side. Hey, well aren't you lucky? Having the big bot helping you out. Yeah, right on, Midoriya. Irio approved with hearty smack to the quirk inheritor's back, which made him double over. Prime must have some great advice for ya if he wants to help ya out. Hehe, thanks guys. Izuku stammered before noticing something was amiss. Wait a minute, did anyone see where Hatsume went? The 8 students of Class 1A all craned their heads around, searching for their pink dreaded inventor friend, only to see that she was nowhere in sight. She was here just a second ago. I think she might have went inside already. RC grinned. No doubt to go bug Red Alert some more with her inventions. The intelligence officer winked down to the group of teens and nudged her thumb over to the base. And if you guys wanna get started on training, I think you should head in as well to change. We'll be waiting for you out here, alright. Momo raised her hand up to the pink bot. Right, of course, RC. Come on guys, I'm fairly certain I know where the restrooms are in this place. Several minutes later, after the students had found the bathrooms, they all changed into their exercise gear, which mainly consisted of gym clothes that they had all brought from home. It almost felt a bit foreign to them after a full week of using almost nothing but UA's gym uniforms, but it was still easy to acclimate to. The boys emerged from the old restrooms first, with Denki and Iroh coming out first. The two were wearing yellow and red muscle shirts respectively, and they also had similar black gym shorts, though Denki's had a yellow stripe while Eijiro's was red. Tenya had emerged next, and he was wearing his blue and cyan track suit, his engines right out in the open. However, the only thing the boys had taken notice of as they came out, was Izuku's ensemble. The Greenette was donned in a pair of green gym shorts with a black stripe down the sides, and a white t-shirt with the literal word, t-shirt, on it in kanji. This had served as a major talking point, somehow. Midoriya, dude, I cannot get over that shirt. Denki smirked. Yeah man, talk about stating the obvious, haha. Eijiro added. Izuku could only shrug, though his cheeks were a little red from embarrassment. I just think it's funny. And it is quite humorous. Tenya admitted, bringing his hand up to Izuku in a chopping motion. Though I also must ask, do you wear those same shoes everywhere you go? The quirk inheritor glanced down to his feet sheepishly, along with said red shoes. Well, that's a whole other story. Hey guys. The boys' attention were all immediately brought up to the voice of Ochako, seeing the girls emerge from their own bathroom, all changed. Ochako herself was dressed in a navy tank top with soft pink shorts, the brunette approaching them with a rather intense stare. You guys ready for this training? Let's do our best. The four all did a double take at her as she raised her fist in the air, taking note of the familiar attitude. Wow, she was like this last week, wasn't she? Denki asked. Yeah, she's pretty pumped for the sports festival. Eijiro affirmed. That's an understatement. Kyoka piped up as she strolled up as well. The earphone jack's ensemble was somewhat simpler in color, settling for a black tank with white shorts. She placed her hands to her hips and smirked to the boys. You guys had better watch your backs, otherwise, Chaco's gonna outdo all of ya. MHA. Not happening. Denki balked. You've got no idea how hard I'm gonna train. Kyoka rolled her eyes at that. Hope that works out for ya. I've seen you in class, Kaminari, and from what I've seen over the past week or so, you're not much of a hard worker. Denki's jaw fell open and he stammered in disbelief. Hold on, that is not true. He whipped his head around to the boys with a look of desperation. See, come on guys, help me out here, huh? Anyone wanna vouch for me? However, judging by their awkward expressions, the rest of the guys didn't seem to be too quick to agree with the electric blonde, which only made his face fall even more. Oh come on. Not you guys too. Eijiro rubbed the back of his head with a frown. Sorry, bro. You're my friend and all, but, I have to admit, you are kind of a slacker. When it comes to training courses, you are better. Tenya admitted. However, you don't seem to pay attention much when it comes to in-class activities. He folded his arms and set a serious gaze onto Denki. I've actually been meaning to talk to you and Ishido about your lack of focus and… Whoa, hold on a sec. Without warning, Mina popped right up from out of nowhere in the middle of everyone, taking them all by surprise. She was wearing a purple tank top with teal-green shorts, the colors matching her hero costume. Mina pouted her lips and narrowed her eyes at Tenya, making him flinch. Since when did I become a subject in this conversation? She raised her head defiantly, crossing her own arms. I'll have you know that I do focus in class. Ochako winced a little at that. No offense, Mina, but, I've seen your notebook and it's half notes, half cute bunny drawings. Mina's cheeks immediately flushed red with embarrassment. Hey, how'd you know that? We sit in the same row. Ochako deadpanned before pointing to Eijiro, Denki and Tenya. Pretty sure they know too since they sit even closer to you. The three boys all nodded at once, which made Mina lower her head in shame. Izuku cleared his throat, re-entering the conversation. Ahem, Ishido, if you and Kaminari would like some help keeping track of notes and studying, maybe I could help. The two students all did a double take, all of them quite surprised at Izuku's offer. Kyoko was also visibly surprised, though for a different reason. Whoa, wait a sec. Denki pointed to Izuku skeptically. So you're just offering to help us study, with no strings attached. The greenette coughed into his hand, letting out some of his nerves before taking a particularly big step. Well, yeah. I mean, I know that we haven't properly known one another for very long, but since we're all in this together, he rubbed the back of his neck with a sheepish smile. I'd like to consider ourselves friends. And friends help each other out, right. You're absolutely right, Midoriya. Everyone perked up at the sight of Momo having finally joined them, the raven-haired beauty now donned in a white t-shirt and red shorts. And I must say, I'm liking the sound of what you're suggesting. Her eyes shifted over to Mina and Denki with a nod. So I would also like to offer my services in helping you two study, along with anyone else who might want some help. Mina had broken out into a big grin at this point. Wow, you mean it? Yay. Within seconds, she and Denki had zipped up to Momo and Izuku, bowing their heads to them in thanks. Wow, thanks you guys. This'll be so awesome. Yeah, thanks. Denki nodded before wearing a confident grin. I mean, we'd probably be fine regardless, but your help is appreciated all the same. Kyoko pursed her lips in annoyance at that. Wow, so humble, she shook her head before going back to Izuku, a proud smile adorning her features. I have to say, though, I'm really proud of ya, Green Bean. Kyoko playfully nudged her best friend in the arm, making him laugh a little. I can't believe ya actually offered to help others study. Izuku rubbed his arm with a nervous chuckle. Well, like I said, we're all in this situation with the Autobots together, so, I wanted to make sure everyone feels welcomed. Either way, it's some great progress. Kyoko winked. And I'm proud of ya for taking that step. However, the perplete placed her hands to her hips and glanced around curiously. But speaking of, all, of us, where the heck is? Poof. Hi Jackie. Kyoko sprung up into the air as everyone else jumped in surprise, too, though Kyoko had ended up jumping so high that someone had to catch her on the way down. Once she knew she was safe, however, she pointed her jacks up at the culprit, none other than Mei Hatsume. The pink-haired girl had returned, now in her usual work clothes of a black tank top, olive green overalls with the top half tied around her waist, thick work boots and a pair of gloves with the pointer finger exposed. She also was sporting her large, steampunkish goggles again, which she had fixed over the weekend. Hatsume. Kyoko barked. What the hell? Oh, sorry, did I surprise ya? Mei wore a wicked grin as she lifted her goggles up to her forehead. Good. Consider that a success for this baby right here. From her belt, the mad inventor pulled up a small cartridge that was filled with tiny black spheres. Smoke pellets. Just a little side project I've been working on. I'm hoping to enhance them a bit and re-engineer them into projectile weaponry, but I'm still trying to figure that one out. The entire group stared at Mei for a minute before Ochako spoke up. So, like literal smoke bombs, only weaponized. Precisely. But I kinda want to up the ante since just having smoke projectiles isn't that big of a deal. Mei admitted. What do you guys think? Should I make them toxic, acidic or paralyzing? A shudder went through everyone before Momo stepped in. Haha, why don't you decide on that, Hatsume? It is your invention after all. Mei tapped her chin and hummed to herself. Good point. I'll just go for all the options. That proclamation did nothing to settle the team's worries, though Mei was quick to point something else out that managed to shock at least two certain people. Also, Muscles, when are ya gonna let Jackie down? Green and deep purple eyes widened and snapped to the side, and all at once, an icy chill went through Kyoka's entire being. Izuku had been the one to catch her, and she was still sitting in his arms, in front of their group of friends, who at this point, had noticed that as well. The color drained from both of their faces before the two immediately separated, breaking out into nervous laughter as they brushed themselves off. Ahahaha, ahaha, thanks. Kyoka stuttered. No problem. Izuku returned before immediately marching off. Well guys, we really shouldn't waste any more time, let's go. The words had come out of Izuku's mouth so fast that they thought it was all one word. But still, most of the others had decided to shrug it off and just keep going, aside from a certain pink girl whose eyes lit up with joy. She began trembling as an excited noise came from her lips, slowly turning her head toward Momo for some hopeful confirmation. Please tell me what I saw really just happened. Mina squeaked out. Momo's shoulders slumped, immediately recognizing where this was going. Yes. Zip. Without a moment to spare, Mina shot right up to Momo and grasped her by the shoulders. Okay, I need every single detail listed in chronological order right now. Momo was about to argue, but then something else decided to happen. Woom. The duo's attention, along with the others, were all brought up to the ceiling as a green light began flashing throughout the base, accompanied by the unmistakable voice of Red Alert. Attention all Autobot personnel, report to the control center effective immediately. We have a situation. Mina sucked her lips in before raising a single finger. Correction, I'll need every detail after we find out if we're gonna die or not. Within moments, the entire team had gathered at the control center, the Autobots hastily entering through the main entrance while the kids came rushing through a small hallway. At the main console, Red Alert was standing and operating the massive machine, pressing buttons as the massive screens above it showed a map of Japan. He turned around as the Autobots and humans came to a halt. Good, you're all here. What is the situation, Red Alert? Optimus asked as he approached the medic. Have you found something? Indeed, I have. Red Alert went back to the console and punched in a few commands and suddenly, the map of Japan began glowing, specifically on a large island part of it that laid to the west. I just finished up installing the energon detection systems. He raised his left arm, pointing his laser tool at the flashing island, and the moment I activated them, I received a strong signal from this part of the country. The kids all immediately recognized which region he was referring to. Kyushu. Izuku spoke out loud. You're saying there could be a ton of energon there. I don't just think. Red Alert reinforced before typing in another command, the map zooming in on a specific part of the island of Kyushu. There, a large, blinking red dot could be seen, which Red Alert pointed to. This spot, right here, is undoubtedly the location of an energon vein. Momo set a hand to her chin. I believe that's Miyazaki Prefecture. Tenya stepped up, adjusting his glasses to make sure he could see the map correctly. Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, he raised his hand in a stiff, chopping motion. Why, that is none other than the location of the Takachiko Gorge. I suppose it would only make sense that there would be some energon there. A gorge, huh? Windblade piped up. Yeah, there's gotta be plenty of energon around there. And probably a lot more, too. Eijiro added. Miyazaki Prefecture is actually one of the least populated parts of Japan. It's really mostly wilderness, so if I had to guess, there's probably a ton of undisturbed ground there. Which makes it all the more likely for Energon to grow without being hindered. Bulkhead concluded with a pump of his fist. Haha, yes. This is great news. We'll be swimming in Energon before we know it. RC cleared her intakes, garnering everyone's attention. Well yeah, it's great, but, aren't we forgetting something? She pointed down to the humans, who all stared right back up at them. We've made some commitments today, remember? Wah, oh. Don't worry about us, guys, really. Izuku assured. Kyoka nodded without hesitation. Yeah, I mean, we know how important gathering Energon is for ya. We can wait until you get back. I am afraid that will be complicated, Kyoka. Optimus said with a shake of his head. Mining Energon can be a daunting task, especially with a vein that's as big as Red Alert believes it to be. We're lucky that the small vein we found the other day was so easy to mine up, honestly. Strongarm jumped in. But with one like this, it's going to take hours. So what do we do? Sideswipe asked. Just leave it there for later. Optimus shook his head. No, that is not an option. We must at least scout the location so that we can assess just how much Energon is there. The Prime tapped his chin in thought before an idea struck. Actually, I believe I have a solution. He set his optics down to Izuku, who immediately met his gaze. Izuku, I believe a change of plans is in order. How would you like to accompany Bumblebee and I on this mission? This garnered B's attention as well, while Izuku's eyebrows rose up in surprise. Whoa, really? You'd really let me come with you? Ah, lucky. Mina pouted. Optimus extended a hand down to Izuku. Well, considering what I wanted to speak to you about concerns both you and Bumblebee, I think it would be the best way to have our conversation in private. He raised a single finger to make another point. Plus, given the nature of your quirk, training a fair distance away from the base would probably be prudent. ZRKT, understatement of the century, ZRKT, Bumblebee proclaimed through his radio. ZRKT, one poo UUNCH, ZRKT, make everything go boom. Izuku couldn't help the nervous sweat on his forehead as he waved Bumblebee off. Well, I don't know if it's that bad. Izuku, you almost leveled a building in our first training exercise. Kyoka pointed out. It kinda is that bad. The brutal honesty was enough to make Izuku double over, but all the same, Kyoka put a supportive hand to his shoulder. But I think you should still go with Optimus and B. Maybe out there, there'll be enough space for ya to go all out without worrying about hurting anyone. The Greenette picked his head up and sent a grin over to his best friend. Why yeah, you've got a point, Kyoka. Izuku's focus shifted back up to the Prime. Alright Optimus, I'm ready to go if you are. Excellent. Climb aboard. Optimus offered his hand and while Izuku was taken aback a little, he eventually climbed on and Optimus brought him up to his shoulder, allowing Izuku to sit on it. Red Alert, set the coordinates and activate the ground bridge. On it, Optimus. Red Alert confirmed before everyone set their sights over to the ground bridge platform. The group watched as Prime, Bumblebee and Red Alert stepped onto the platform, the latter going to the controls to activate the device. Once he entered the coordinates, he pulled on the lever and within seconds, the ground bridge fired up, creating a huge, spiraling bluish-green portal before everyone's eyes. Those who hadn't seen it in action before marveled at the large vortex with slack jaws. Whoa, that's amazing, Ochako muttered. Tenya had to adjust his glasses to make sure he was seeing things correctly. How is something like this even possible? Transwarp tech, Bulkhead answered, though I think it might be just a bit too complicated for you guys to understand. No offense. However, if anything, that just made May all the more determined. Forget that, Bulkhead. One day I will understand how spacebridge technology works. And then I will make my own personal one for easy transportation around the world. Ahahaha. Red Alert rolled his optics under his visor. Yes, good luck with that. Anyway, you're ready to go, Optimus. I'll be waiting for you to contact us as soon as you find something. Good, we will stay in touch. Optimus affirmed before turning to his companions. Izuku, Bumblebee, let's roll. Bumblebee buzzed in approval while Izuku gave a single nod, prompting the three to go through the ground bridge. Once they were all gone, the portal closed, leaving the others to go about their business. Sunstreaker clapped his hands together, garnering everyone's attention. Okay, so now that we've got all of that out of the way, what say we get started on that training, Heck yeah. Eijiro pumped a fist. I've been waiting all day for this, are ya kidding me? Denki gave a thumbs up as he and the others all began following the other Autobots outside. Let's do it, guys. He received a collective, yeah, from the entire team as they filed out of the base, all except for Windblade and Momo, who went to the inner training room. The only one left in the room was Red Alert, who sighed to himself as he went back to the console. Ah, thank goodness for some peace and quiet, thunk thunk thunk. MHA. Yoo-hoo. Red Alert craned his head down, and saw May standing next to his foot, knocking her hand on his leg with a bright, happy smile while holding up what looked like a jetpack. Okay Red, time to get to work. I'm gonna need your help with the propulsion on this baby. The Autobot medic groaned and facepalmed at his misfortune. Ah, don't be such a grumpy Gus. This'll be fun. Define, fun, Several kilometers away, on the island region of Kyushu, a large portal opened up on the back of a river that was nestled at the bottom of a massive gorge, the entire area composed of massive rock walls and overgrown vegetation. The banks themselves were composed mainly of small, individual rocks, the tiny stones making the rolling waters babble as the river flowed. It was here that Optimus, Bumblebee and Izuku all emerged, the two Autobots landing on their peds and making the earth tremble slightly. All the while, Izuku couldn't help the slight feeling of nausea begin to overtake him after exiting the portal. HMPH. Izuku had to cover his mouth as his complexion became an unhealthy shade of green for a moment. I forgot how disorientating going through that is. Yes. Unfortunately, organic beings do not take to going through space bridges all that well, I'm afraid. Optimus' optics trailed upward, and it was then that they widened in astonishment. Bumblebee was also visibly captivated by the environment around them, composed of stunning greenery, massive mountains, and the blue waters and sky above. If they could breathe, their breath definitely would have been taken away. This is incredible. ZRKT, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, it's true. Bumblebee emphasized. Izuku nodded and craned his head up toward the sky. Yeah, Kyushu is a natural wonder, that's for sure. It's why plenty of tourists come here. Optimus and Bumblebee began to walk as the conversation went on. I can imagine so. Prime agreed, taking in more of the natural wonder. I've always been astounded by organic planets and the sights they have to offer. Yeah, but I'm sure Cybertron must have sights that are similar to this. Izuku trailed off when he noticed a look of silent sadness overtake Prime and B's faces, and he instantly began apologizing. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. No, Izuku, there is no need for apologies. Optimus insisted. It's just, there are many things that I do miss about Cybertron. And you're right, there are plenty of beautiful sights that it has to offer. They heard Bumblebee let out a sad buzz before Prime went on. But, as you can imagine, Cybertron is not what it used to be. Izuku lowered his head a bit. Yeah, given how you talk about it, I'm not surprised to hear that. I hope one day, you guys can go back to it. We will, Izuku. Optimus nodded. One day, when the war is over, I vow that we will go back to Cybertron and restore it to what it once was before. In his mind, Optimus added, at least, that's what I hope. He shook his head before changing the subject. But let's not dwindle on such things. Right now, I would like to finally discuss the nature of your quirk with you. Izuku brightened up at that, excited at the idea of whatever wisdom Optimus had to impart onto him. Oh yeah, sure. What did you want to talk about? Namely, the fact that I know it isn't entirely your quirk. Not even a second later, Optimus saw Izuku's demeanor perform a complete 180 yet again. The boy's lips moved down as his features morphed into a stunned state, his eyes almost bulging out of his head at how wide they had gotten. He was also shaking slightly as well, and the Prime could sense his anxiety levels shooting through the roof. Out of the corner of his optics, Optimus could see Bumblebee in a similar state, and it occurred to him that may have been a bit too forward. Perhaps that was more blunt than I meant it to be. Izuku forced a nervous smile as he tried to deny it. What are you talking about, Optimus? Oh, of course my quirk's 100% my own, I mean, why wouldn't it be, right? He saw Prime raise an eyerage at him, and in an instant, Izuku knew it was futile to try and fake it. You don't believe any of that, do you? No, I do not. Optimus reached up and scooped Izuku up, lowering him down to the ground. Izuku, I had my suspicions about your quirk since I first saw it in action. The moment you blew Shatter away with just a flick of your finger, I felt a similar feeling when All Might and I were fighting Dropkick just moments before. And after a few days, I can finally confirm my thoughts. He crouched down and tilted his head to Izuku. You and All Might, you not only share the same quirk, but it's the exact same. He passed his power down to you, didn't he? The Greenette was left stunned, and he whipped his head around to Bumblebee to see how shocked he was as well. The yellow bug gave a shrug and beeped in confusion, indicating he had no idea. ZRKT, I'm just as surprised as you. A sigh escaped Izuku's lips and his head hung low. Well, I guess there's no denying it, he swallowed hard and then let it all out. Yes, you're right, Optimus. All Might, he passed his own quirk down to me. It's called, One for All. It's a quirk that accumulates power the more times it's passed down from user to user, and I'm its 9th holder. I knew it. Optimus lowered his head down to his chest, placing a hand over it. I had a feeling that your quirk was similar to this. Similar to Flash. Whoa. Without warning, the windshields on Prime's chest began to glow with an intense, blue light, which only grew brighter the moment he opened his chest panels up. What Izuku saw next left him completely taken aback. From Optimus' chest, a secret compartment was revealed, one that held some sort of crystalline orb within it. The orb was encased in some sort of round container that was plated with gold, along with a pair of sterling silver handles on either side of it. Izuku couldn't help but stare into it in silence, almost as if he was in a trance. And, while this could have been his mind playing tricks on him, he could have sworn he could hear voices speaking out to him from the object. What is that? This, Izuku, is the matrix of leadership. Optimus reached in and grabbed the matrix by its handles, taking it out of his chest so that Izuku could see it better. It is an ancient vessel that contains the wisdom and power of the original 13 primes, along with the other primes who came after them and before me. Bumblebee buzzed in awe while Izuku was still comprehending what he was seeing. Whoa, I think Windblade actually mentioned this to me. She said that you went down to Cybertron's core to retrieve it, right? Indeed. Optimus confirmed. That is when I took on the mantle of Prime. But Izuku, it is through this that I realized that the quirk that you and All Might share is similar to the Matrix. Oftentimes, I receive visions from the primes that help guide me, and recently, I experienced one that informed me of a power that was just like it on Earth. And it would seem now that I have found the source of that power. Optimus reached down and pointed to Izuku's chest. That would be you. Wow, that's incredible. Izuku smiled, only for his expression grew quite serious just a few seconds later. But Optimus, you have to swear that you won't tell anyone about One for All. Not even everyone back at base. Optimus tilted his head as he placed the matrix back into his chest. Do you not trust them? And no, it's not that I don't trust them. That's not the reason at all. Izuku assured. It's just, if the secret got out that I had All Might's quirk, things could end up really bad for everyone. Not just for my friends, but for you and the other Autobots, too. Those words left Optimus to ponder on his response, realizing that Izuku made a good point. Well, while I do not approve of keeping a secret from my Autobots, I also understand that All Might must have made some powerful enemies. And I admire that you wish to protect your friends as well. The Autobot leader thought over it for a few moments more before coming to a conclusion. Alright, I will keep your secret. But at the same time, I think it would be beneficial to eventually let the others in at some point down the line. What? But Optimus, I just said. I understand your concerns, but you must remember that you are part of a team now. Optimus pressed. And it is unhealthy to keep secrets from other teammates, especially when they're your friends. He pointed to him once again. I'm not saying that you should come out with it right away, but take time to build trust between yourself and your friends, and then consider telling them. We're in this together. Izuku heard his own words echo through his mind, as he thought back to the faces of his friends, which of course made his mind go back to Kyoka. I want to tell her, for sure, but maybe letting the others in on it too wouldn't be so bad either. With a small sigh, Izuku craned his head back up to the prime before him. Yeah, you're right, Optimus. I'll think on it, and hopefully one day, I can trust all of them to keep this secret, too. Optimus nodded back down to him. Good, that's exactly what I want to hear. ZRKT, secret. I've got a secret. ZRKT, out with it. Bumblebee piped up, making Izuku and Optimus chuckle a bit. So, is that all you wanted to talk to me about? Izuku asked. Just the fact that the Matrix and One for All are alike. The Autobot leader shook his head. Oh, far from it. You see, I believe that I may be able to help you harness your power so that you no longer have to worry about breaking your bones every time you use it. Izuku's jaw fell to the floor when he heard that. WHAAAT. Why didn't you say that earlier? Well, I had assumed that learning about the Matrix first would be interesting to you. Oh, I mean, it is, but I've been trying to figure out a way to balance my power without breaking anything for months now and I haven't gotten anywhere. Izuku fell to his knees and bowed before Optimus. Please, Optimus, you have to teach me how. A laugh came from Optimus as he pat Izuku gently on the back. Ha ha ha. Don't worry, Izuku, I will help you in any way I can, I promise you that. Without warning, Prime scooped Izuku back up into his hand and set the grenade on his shoulder again. But before that, we should proceed with our mission. That Energon isn't going to find itself, after all. Izuku smiled and pumped a fist. Yeah, let's go. ZRKT, let's do it, to it. Bumblebee agreed. Meanwhile, back at the Autobot base, something big was going on outside, at least in the minds of Ajiro and Sideswipe. The two training partners were standing on opposite sides of the small field in front of the base, their stances wide and ready for anything that the other had to throw at them. Ajiro wore an eager smirk as he popped a few muscles in his neck. I gotta warn ya now, Sideswipe, I don't think you're ready for me. He said somewhat cockily. You sure you're not underestimating me? Huh, come on man, what'd you take me for? Sideswipe fired back. Of course I'm talking, ya seriously. I mean, with a hairstyle like yours, who wouldn't? I feel like that was a subtle burn. Well, it wasn't. Sideswipe raised an eyebrow. It was a compliment. Now, you ready to harden up or what? With a determined gaze, Ajiro brought up his fists and hardened them up considerably, ready to begin. Hell yeah, man, let's do this. Alright, hope you're at max hardness. Sideswipe retracted his hands and pulled out his pair of jackhammers, the stainless steel tools already moving at top gear. Because you're in for a poundin'. Off in the distance, the two heard Kyoka laughing for some reason, but wrote it off the moment they charged at one another. Ajiro roared as he raised his arms up, taking a defensive route as Sideswipe slammed his jackhammers into the hardened limbs. The redhead had to dig in his heels to stand his ground as the tools beat themselves repeatedly into his arms, doing all that he could to not buckle under the intense hammering. Ajiro grit his teeth and peeked one eye past his defensive line, seeing just how fast the jackhammers were going. Holy crap, these things really are no joke. Better start putting on more of an offense before I'm screwed. With a slight movement of his leg, Ajiro allowed the jackhammer to send him back about 2 feet, giving him enough space to bring his arms back and send one forward in a punch. What happened next was something he couldn't have predicted. The collision not only hurt, but it sent him flying back several feet, leaving both him and Sideswipe stunned. Yah! Bam! Ajiro didn't fly far before he collided with a nearby boulder, and it was at that moment that he was grateful for hardening his entire body up in mid-flight. Sideswipe gasped and sprinted for him as fast as he could. Ajiro! He slid to a halt as the redhead fell from the boulder, only to catch him in his hand. Dude, what were you thinking? Ajiro blinked in shock at his partner's words. What? Sideswipe, I was hitting back. What were you expecting me to do? Stay on the defensive, of course. Sideswipe set Ajiro to the ground gently. Ajiro, the point of this training is to help you build up your max hardness so that you can counter an attack like that. Don't get me wrong, the point where you're at right now is good, but it's got a long way to go until you can push me back. He sent a wink down to him. Remember, I'm not a Viacon. I actually have the processor necessary to fight back. Ajiro grimaced slightly at that analogy, but nonetheless, saw Sideswipe's point. Yeah, I get ya Sideswipe. I guess you really know what you're talking about here. Thanks, now do you mind telling Strongarm that? Sideswipe's quip instantly made him and Ajiro laugh, leading the two to stand back up. Now come on, let's get back to it, and no hitting back this time. As the red duo were training, the yellow duo were on the other side of the field, getting ready to do the same. Denki was taking in some deep breaths in order to prepare himself for what was to come, all while Sunstreaker stood patiently not too far away. I'm ready whenever you are, Denki. The yellow Lambo brother waved, bringing out his energy absorption panels from his right wrist. Just say when. Once he was ready to go, Denki set his sights over to Sunstreaker with a wicked grin. Hey, Ready is my middle name, Sunstreaker. Humans have middle names. I didn't know that. Denki couldn't help but wince a bit at that before charging himself up. Okay, so my goal here is to get it so my brain isn't fried after using my quirk too much. So to start out, I'm gonna go with 1,000,000 volts. That sound good. Sunstreaker gave him a thumbs up and Denki nodded back. Okay, let's do this. The electric blonde raised his arms and proclaimed to the sky, indiscriminate shock, 1.3 million volts. From Denki's body a huge surge of lightning erupted, almost exploding from his arms and out toward Sunstreaker. The yellow bot's optics widened in shock, only to gasp the moment he realized his arm wasn't up. Thankfully, he raised it just in time and all of the lightning was drawn to the absorption panels on his wrist. Sunstreaker held his ground for about a solid 30 seconds before the electricity stopped, so he moved his head to see Denki's condition. You okay there, Denk? Oh my. Standing across from him, Denki was making the dopiest face imaginable while holding two thumbs up, a rather dumb laugh coming out of his throat at the same time. Sunstreaker deadpanned and slapped his forehead. We have so much work to do, but then, an idea struck. Wait, I think I've got an idea on how to get his head in the game. Now that he had efficient energy levels, Sunstreaker retracted the panels and instead brought out his solar flare cannon, aiming it right at Denki. Yo dude, heads up. Blam. Within moments, Denki was brought back to reality as Sunstreaker fired a flare at him, making him jump several feet in the air. Dude, son, what the hell? Hey, you were staring off into space, my man. Sunstreaker shrugged. If y'all wanna get your mind in the game more often, you're gonna have to want it. A smirk came to the bot's face as his flare gun lit up once more. Now dance, my puppet. Dance. Gia. Bang. Hey. Boom. Come on man, this isn't funny. This is freaking hysterical. Kyoka snickered as she watched what was going down from the beach. She held her phone up to record as Sunstreaker continued to fire his solar flare gun, with Denki doing the most hilarious jig she'd ever seen in a vain attempt to get away. The punk rocker was not about to let this opportunity slip by. Hee, how soon do you think it'll take Kaminari to realize Sunstreaker's not trying to hit him? Jazz stood behind her with his arms folded, shaking his head with a small smirk of his own. Probably gonna be a while. He craned his head down and tilted it at his training partner. But I gotta ask, you got something against him or what? Ya seem to like pickin' on him. Kyoka set her sights back up to him and shook her head. What? Nah, I just think it's fun. She glanced back the moment she heard Denki belt a high-pitched scream and gave another chuckle. Besides, he's a bit of a goof, so someone's gotta keep him in line, right? Hey, kinda like Strongarm and Sideswipe. Only less malicious. Kyoka pointed out. Those two have some problems that they need to work out. Jazz shrugged, conceding to her point. Ya got me there, Kyo. Now, how's about we get to that trainin'? WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Within moments, Jazz transformed into his vehicle mode and his sonic amplifiers emerged from his trunk, the Porsche aiming himself toward the ocean before them. Now come on, let's try to help ya up your volume. Oh, I'm so there. The earphone jack user put her phone away and climbed onto the back of Jazz's vehicle mode, bracing herself against the rear window and planting her feet firmly on his bumper. Her jacks then went out and plugged into the sonic amps and she gave his roof a pat. Okay, you good to go. This may get a little loud. MHA. I've G'd some o' the most hoppin' nightclubs on Cybertron, little lady. Jazz assured. I can handle a bit o' noise. Just gimme the word and I'll turn 'em on. Okay. 3, 2, 1, let it rip. At Kyoka's word, Jazz turned on his speakers. And then, VVWWWWOOOOAAAAAAAAAUUUUUMMM. Two powerful sonic blasts erupted from Jazz's speakers and shot out across the ocean, taking both of them by surprise. Kyoka barely had time to comprehend the absolute power that she managed to unleash, before realizing that both she and Jazz were being pushed back through the sand. Ah! Both of them belted out screams, which only grew louder when they saw that they were being pushed toward a massive boulder. Unplug. Jazz advised. Unplug. Kyoka dislodged her jacks and the blasts immediately stopped, though that didn't exactly stop Jazz momentum. He and Kyoka were sent hurtling into the air, and in the nick of time, Jazz transformed, catching Kyoka in his arms as he slammed back first into the boulder. A pained groan came from Jazz's throat as he slumped to the ground, both he and Kyoka breathing hard in disbelief of what had just happened. Huh, okay, we're never, Kyoka swiped her arm for emphasis. And I mean never doing that again. Yeah, not in vehicle mode at least. Jazz added. Gonna need more traction for something like that. He grinned down to Kyoka and helped her stand up. Why don't we just focus on building up the strength o' your jacks themselves instead o' trying to get y'all louder, huh? Hey, yeah, sounds good. On the other end of the beach, however, a certain other pair had taken notice of the scene and were left stunned by what happened. Bulkhead and Mina were staring wide-eyed at the sonic blast that Kyoka and Jazz had unleashed, and it was then that the pink girl was grateful that they weren't doing something that intense. Man, good thing we're keeping it simple for now, Bulk. Huh, yeah, would rather not end up like that, thank you. Bulkhead agreed before taking up a bunch of rocks in his hand. Okay, so, target practice. He grinned down to her as he tossed a rock up and down in his hand. I'm sure you're no stranger to this, right? Oh, you betcha. Mina balled her fists eagerly. I do this kinda stuff all the time. Good, but I bet you never try to control the strength of your acid while doing so. He saw Mina raise a brow at him, so the big Autobot explained, see, your goal through our training should be to increase the acidity of your, well, acid. So hopefully, we can get to a point where these rocks will be gone before they even hit the ground. Mina placed a hand on her hip and scoffed. PSSH, piece of cake, Bulk. Her grin returned and she raised her hands up in preparation. Let's do it. Just, try not to hit me, okay? Of course, though I hope you won't hit me either, hee hee. Perish the thought. Mina brought up her hand, filling it with acid. Now let's go. At her word, Bulkhead threw the first rock and Mina flung her acid at it. Splat. The corrosive substance made contact and immediately began melting the rock, but not before it came falling to the sand with a hard thump. And it was only then that Mina realized, these rocks were huge. Whoa. I didn't realize they were that big. Bulkhead took the opportunity to chuck another rock at her. That's the point. Mina yelped and blasted more acid at the next rock, which once again fell to the earth before it melted all the way. We're gonna get your quirk to the point where you can melt through something huge in seconds, so stay on your toes. As the big green bot continued to throw rocks, Mina suddenly found herself beginning to sweat a bit, both in nervousness and trying to up the intensity of her quirk. Each time she flung acid toward the not-quite boulders, she tried focusing on how fast each and every one of them seemed to melt, only to see that they were pretty much all going the same speed, and none of them were gone before they hit the ground. Okay, maybe I overestimated myself on this one. I only hope the other gals are doing better. Meanwhile, back inside the base, Momo and Windblade had arrived at the Autobots' new training area, which was actually one of the biggest rooms inside of the old abandoned manufacturing warehouse. The room was so huge and the ceilings were so high that one would think an entire house could fit in it. Momo was surprised, to say the least. Oh my word, how did you guys clear out that entire assembly line so quickly? Oh, we mostly sliced it up for the most part. Windblade answered as she led Momo further in, the two standing in the middle of the vast floor. Any parts we found useful, we saved, and the rest we had Sector 7 dispose of. She faced her new pupil and clasped her hands together. Okay, so let's get to it, shall we? Windblade smiled as Momo gave her full attention to her before she transformed into her vehicle mode, activating her holoform, Windy, in the process. Now, let me see if I understand your quirk correctly. You can make any inorganic substance that you want, right? Yes, so long as I know what it's made of. Momo nodded before lifting her arm and creating something out of her elbow. It appeared to be a metal handle, and the moment she pulled it out, she revealed that it was a steel replica of Windblade's Stormfall sword, right down to the shape of the blade. I also create everything out of the lipids of my body, so I need to eat plenty of food in order to use my quirk. Windy stepped up and stared at the replica in amazement, reaching out as Momo handed it to her. Well, I have to say, that is quite impressive. You must be able to get pretty creative in a fight then. Momo faltered a bit at that, biting down on her lip. Well, I suppose you could say that. Whoa. Without warning, Windy brought the Stormfall replica up in a swing, which Momo quickly blocked by creating a shield on her forearm. Windblade, what was that? First rule of combat, never let your guard down. Windy smirked. Good reaction time, by the way. You blocked my strike the moment you saw it coming. The question now, though, is what comes next. What? What do you, thwomp? Ow. Windy's knee suddenly came up and socked Momo right in her stomach, making her stagger back as the air was pushed out of her lungs. From there, Windy kept putting the pressure on with more strikes, some of which Momo managed to block, others that left a new bruise. This kept going until finally, Momo was left with nowhere to go, backed right into a corner with Windy having knocked the shield clean off her arm with a strong kick. The Autobot's holoform then rushed in and put the flat of her blade up close to Momo's throat, keeping her pressed up against the wall behind her. Windy narrowed her eyes before stepping away from her pupil. Momo, you need some serious work. I wasn't ready for any of that. Momo argued. Exactly. Windblade handed her sword back to Momo before her holoform disappeared and she transformed back into robot mode. The city speaker walked back over to her and crouched down. Momo, you were on the defensive for that entire thing. In battle, you cannot hesitate to lower those defenses and actually attack. Even when the attacker is putting pressure on you, you have to find a way to turn the tables so that you can have the advantage. Momo blinked in stunned silence, allowing Windblade's words to sink in. I was trying to think of my next move, but I couldn't come up with anything. There were too many options going through my head. Windblade smiled and reached down, putting her finger under her chin to make her look up at her. And that's exactly why we're going to work on with our training. You have a creative quirk, Momo, so now it's time to help you gain a creative mind for battle. She saw the girl give her a small, if somewhat reluctant smile, which Windblade reciprocated. I know it's a bit nerve-wracking, but I promise, by the end of this, you'll be in top fighting shape. With a deep breath, Momo nodded and balled her hand into a fist. Okay, let's try again. RC. I don't think I see the point in this. Ochako was currently hanging upside down from a tree branch by her legs, her hair and arms falling limply toward the ground. Weirder still, RC herself was the reason why she was in this position, having done so without warning and freaking her out. Remind me, why the heck are we doing this again? RC was doing the same on a different tree, though she was higher up and on a much thicker branch. She set her sights down to Ochako and explained, well, I've been reading up on human physiology, and in my studies, I've found that when you hang upside down, all of the blood in your body rushes to your head. Okay, so, when that happens, you get dizzy, and you have to deal with a nauseating feeling. RC went on. What I'm thinking is that if you can handle hanging upside down for an extended period of time without getting sick, then maybe that can extend to your quirk making you nauseous, too. She sent a wink down to her training partner. Plus, if you float yourself, you'd probably have to deal with blood rushing to your head anyway, so this makes for good practice in those situations. Ochako blinked a couple times as she let RC's form of training settle into her head, and it wasn't long until her smile returned. Oh hey, I get it. Yeah, I think I can see where you're coming from. There was a small pause before the brunette asked, so, how long do we do this for? About 10 cycles or so. She saw Ochako raise an eyebrow at her and RC realized that measurement made no sense to her. Oh, sorry. The Earth equivalent of that would be about 10 minutes. Oh, Phew, that's good. Ochako sighed in relief. Okay, time to get focused. The gravity user began to clear her mind and concentrating, all while feeling more pressure build in her head. However, her face eventually began to turn red, and before long, her eyesight began to grow somewhat fuzzy. Finally, by the 5-minute mark, he. RC's metal brow furrowed in concern. Chaco. You okay? He, the room is spiiiiiining. Woo. Ochako's goofy grin almost made RC crack up, but that was quickly negated when she saw Ochako's legs begin to tremble. And within moments, she couldn't keep her legs hooked on the branch anymore. Wah, ah. A gasp came from RC's throat as Ochako went tumbling toward the ground. No. With incredible speed, RC unhooked her own legs and did a backflip, her feet landing on her tree before she thrust herself out and caught Ochako just before she hit the ground. RC slid to a halt and sighed, resting her head against a nearby trunk. Okay, I think that's enough of that for today, Ochako. Ochako shakily stood up, her eyes spinning before resting against RC's finger. Mommy, I wanna get off Mr. Bones' wild ride. A few miles away, Tenya slid to a halt as he and Strongarm finally arrived at the field they were to train at, resting his hands on his knees as he took in a few breaths. His eyes scanned across the whole place and he had to admit, Strongarm had found a pretty good place for training him specifically. The grassy area was about the size of an American football field with trees surrounding its entire diameter, giving him plenty of room to run at top speed. Plus, because of the trees, they were hidden fairly well from prying eyes, meaning he could use his quirk without consequence. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Strongarm transformed into robot mode as she pulled onto the field, stepping up to Tenya as she outstretched her hand. Well, Tenya, what do you think? This enough room to stretch your legs? Yes, it is, the blue-haired boy affirmed. You certainly have an eye for efficiency, Strongarm. A place that's both hidden and acclaimable to my quirk. It's perfect. Oh, stop. Strongarm waved off. It was nothing, really. She raised her palm up and brought out a holographic diagram, showing the stats of Tenya's run time. You did very good on your run here, by the way. Your time was amicable and you did it all without breaking the speed limit. I'm quite proud of you on that. Thank you. Tenya bowed. I try my best to stay in line with the rules, of course. The engine user then began to stretch his legs out, ready to run some more. But, now that we're here, I can really cut loose. So, what shall we do first? Combat, or simply running? Strongarm brought up another hologram, this one of what Tenya could only assume was a stopwatch. I think it'd be best to start on your stamina. With all the running you do, I imagine that you must get tired eventually. So to work on that, you'll start by running laps around this entire field. And of course, I'll be keeping your time. With an eager grin, Tenya began doing some more stretches, this time focusing on his upper body. Excellent. A few laps to start things off will surely. 50. What? You'll be doing 50 laps to start off? Strongarm repeated with a knowing smirk. Remember, this isn't just a training camp, this is auto boot camp. And as you can imagine, we don't take things lightly here. Her finger grew nearer to the timer as Tenya's eyes widened. Now, I suggest you get ready. Tenya screamed before practically scrambling to get into a ready position. Get set, the engines in Tenya's legs kicked on, ready to run the moment Strongarm gave the word. Go. Shoom. With a blast of wind that Strongarm was only barely prepared for, Tenya went off like a shot, sprinting along the diameter of the field like his life depended on it. Strongarm steadied herself and grinned at the sight of her partner dashing around the field, nodding in approval. Excellent. He'll be the perfect trainee. Back in the base, Red Alert couldn't believe what he was doing. He was initially going to just brush May off like so many times before, but the moment he saw her begin to work on her jetpack, he couldn't help but notice something that seemed off to him. And he knew that no matter how much he tried, it'd bother him until he pointed it out. And that is why you should reroute this wire into this component. The medic explained. That way, you'll receive twice the amount of thrust instead of whatever you've been getting up to this point. Understand? May's jaw hung to the floor as she realized that Red was actually correct, her hands flying up to her head in shock. Oh my gosh, so that's why I haven't been getting the amount of thrust I wanted. I cannot believe I missed that. Within moments, she began to tinker with the backpack, doing just as Red Alert instructed before pressing the test button on the top of the pack. And just like that, the thrusters kicked to life with a renewed energy that made May smile widely at its success. Haha. Amazing. It works. Of course it does. Red Alert concurred. All it takes is a little ingenuity and, he trailed off the moment he noticed May sending her ear-to-ear smile up to him, leaving the medic confused. Is there something wrong? May placed a hand to her hip, raising an eyebrow at him. Was that so hard? Was what hard? Helping me out with my baby. May pat the jetpack for emphasis. I mean, since we first met, it feels like you've done nothing but refused anything I asked, and now you just helped me. Red Alert craned his head away from her, but all the same, she reached out and gave him a pat on the arm. Thank you. You're welcome. Red Alert returned. Listen May, Woom. The duo were taken off guard when the basie's alarm began to ring out again, their heads snapping toward the control console. What's going on now? May asked as she and Red Alert moved toward it. Is it Prime? Red Alert's optics went toward the control panel, only to immediately saw the words, Incoming transmission, Agent Fowler, on the screen. No, it's Fowler. The medic felt a hint of concern flow through him as he answered the call, with Fowler's face appearing on the screen. Agent Fowler, to what do we owe the Red Alert? Where's Prime? Fowler interrupted. We've got a serious situation here and I need him stat. Choosing to ignore the man's blatant disregard for even a hello, Red Alert answered him. He's off in Kyushu investigating an energon vein we've discovered earlier. He's also taken Izuku and Bumblebee with him. Fowler's eyes widened immediately. Kyushu. So that explains why it's headed there. What's it? May hollered from the ground. Earlier today at 1200 hours Pacific time, some of our boys in the States got blindsided by an unidentified flying object. Fowler explained. They managed to escape with their lives, but not before their birds got shot down, and the UFO managed to take on the form of their jets. The agent raised a brow to Red Alert and May, their expressions both clearly shocked. Yeah, sound familiar to you. What's worse is that this bogey's headed straight for Kyushu, so if I had to guess. Oh no, Red Alert frantically began typing in a command on the console, sending a signal to Optimus and Bumblebee's comlink. Optimus, come in. We have an emergency situation and you are right in its path. Back in Takachiko Gorge, Izuku was staring in awe at one of the most amazing things he had ever seen. He was no stranger to what crystallized energon looked like since they had found a small surplus of it just a few days ago, but to see a significant amount of it was something else entirely. After eventually finding a small, hidden cave in the massive gorge, he, Optimus and Bumblebee were quick to go exploring inside of it, and after a few minutes, they ended up stumbling into a spacious grotto, which had huge energon crystals sticking out of each and every wall, and even the floor. Optimus and Bumblebee were left speechless at the discovery while Izuku dashed around the place, marveling at how massive the crystals were. And the fact that they glowed and that there was a small reservoir of water in the grotto only served to make the scene more splendorous. Haha. This is incredible. Optimus, please tell me you're seeing this. I am, Izuku, Prime assured as he and Bumblebee stepped toward the crystalline energon. But I'm still comprehending it. I had hoped that this discovery would be plentiful, but this is ZRKT, the motherlode. Bumblebee proclaimed with his hand up high. Izuku reached out to touch one of the crystals, his breath taken away. Wow, how much do you think is here? Enough to power Polyhex for a month, I'd say. Optimus wagered, putting a hand to his chin. The problem is, I have no clue how we're going to mine all of this. Perhaps we should contact Sector 7 for some assistance. KSSH, Optimus, come in. We have an emergency situation and you are right in its path. Prime's head snapped up as he heard Red Alert's voice suddenly ring through his comlink, putting his finger up to his helm to respond. Red Alert, what's happening? What's the situation? Bumblebee tuned in his own comm to hear the medic as well while Izuku ran back toward the bots to listen in. Wherever you, B and Izuku are, you all need to leave right now. Agent Fowler has contacted me and said that an unidentified object appeared recently, took the form of a jet and is headed straight for you in Kyushu right now. All at once, Prime and B's optics widened in realization, which Izuku quickly caught on to. Oh crap, please tell me this isn't what I think it is. And then, boom. At the sound of an explosion from outside, the cave walls around them began to quake, causing debris to break off from the ceiling and fall. Some of it almost hit Izuku in the process, but Bumblebee was quick to protect him. Decepticons. Prime grimly uttered before speaking to Red Alert once more. Red Alert, ready the ground bridge. Once we're out of the cave, I'm sending Izuku back to you immediately. Affirmative, Optimus. Red Alert replied. It'll be ready soon, just be sure to get back in one piece. Of course, Prime out. The moment Prime deactivated his comm, another explosion suddenly rocked the cave, making the ground shake beneath everyone's feet. Gah, quickly, we must move. But Optimus, what about the Energon? Izuku asked. But the Prime just shook his head. Izuku, it is of no use to us if the cave is collapsed. This Decepticon is after us, not the Energon. It's likely they have no clue it's even here, and it's best to be kept that way. Now hurry. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Without wasting any more time, Prime and B transformed into their vehicle modes, with Izuku falling into the latter's passenger seat immediately. Let's roll out of here. The two Autobots drove out of the cave as quick as they could, dodging falling debris as they did while Izuku braced himself against Bumblebee's seat. Finally, they could see daylight, and with a burst of speed, the semi-truck and Volkswagen Beetle burst out of the cave. Their tires skidded across the ground as they landed before both transformed again, the two taking battle-ready stances. ZRKT, where are you? Show yourself, Bumblebee declared. Oh, I would be happy to. Within a single second, Bumblebee had instantly regretted saying that. He and Optimus felt a chill go through their circuits at the sound of that familiar voice, and before long, they saw an Earth jet coming straight for them, and it sported a rather familiar color scheme. Izuku's eyes went wide as the incoming F-15, and he could only make one guess at who it was. Is that? WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. The jet began transforming as it zoomed in toward them, its underside coming undone as a pair of massive arms unfurled from it. Its fuselage extended down, transforming into a set of legs as its thrusters unfolded into a pair of blue feet. Its tail fins folded in on themselves and into its legs while the main wings rotated up and onto its back, all while the nose cone began compressing in on itself and folded down into the bot's red chest. The air intakes were propped up on its shoulders and a set of laser guns emerged from its arms, which immediately began lighting up with purple energy. Finally, the robot's head slid up from the jet's cockpit, its helm painted black with a somewhat angular shape to it with small air vents on the sides. The bot's chin, however, was very pointy, and his optics were gleaming red the moment they spotted the group. He raised his arms up and immediately fired his weapons. It's Starscream, Optimus belted out before tackling Bumblebee and Izuku behind a nearby boulder. Hit the dirt. Pew 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 pew. Violet laser fire rocked the entire area around them, scorching the earth and making it shake with a mighty tremor. By the time things had quieted down and the trio peeked out from behind their hiding place, they saw that the ground itself was littered with tiny fires, and Starscream himself was hovering in midair via the jets in his feet. Greetings, Autobots, the Decepticon Air Commander said with a smirk. Mind if I crash the party? Chapter 8, Decepticons Attack. There were times in his life that Izuku could say that he was terrified, but at least he knew that things would be alright. After all, villains were known to attack almost every single day, but a hero would always be there to help save the day. That and of course the daily bullying from Kachan, but he preferred not to think of that. If there was one thing that being an admirer of All Might's work taught him, it's that keeping a positive attitude in the face of adversity could help you get through any challenge. And while that philosophy did have its flaws, Izuku still strived to stay positive about most things that came his way, even if his nerves still got to him. And even then, he was trying to work through that last part. Here, however, in this situation, positivity was hard to come by. Because at that very moment, Bumblebee and Optimus were being stared down by a pretty intimidating Cybertronian. Starscream was unlike any Transformer Izuku had seen, at least in terms of size and power. He had to at least be as tall as Optimus, if not a smidge taller. But even then, his wings gave him a silhouette that made him look much taller. Shatter and Dropkick had been pretty intimidating, but they didn't compare to Starscream, who flew in front of them with a sinister yet confident air to him. The Decepticon Air Commander lowered himself down to the ground, his landing making the ground beneath him shake. He gave a small snicker as he stepped forward, raising his arms as Optimus and Bumblebee took defensive positions. Now, let's not be too hasty. That little light show was simply to get your attention. ZRKT, that looked a lot more, ZRKT, like you were gonna, ZRKT, destroy US. Bumblebee fired back through his radio. Oh, my apologies. Old habits die hard, I guess. Starscream waved off before mumbling to himself, as can other things as well. Optimus narrowed his optics as he stood up, bringing out his ion blaster to aim it at the Seeker. Starscream, I'll give you exactly 1 cycle to tell me what you're doing here on Earth. Optimus Prime. Starscream gave a theatrical bow in greeting. And here we in the Decepticon upper ranks thought we would never see you again. He wrung his hands together eagerly. Lord Megatron was very cross with you when you left Cybertron and disappeared, you know. But, given it's been 300 stellar cycles, I'm sure he must have calmed down by now. His red optics went over to Bumblebee to address him as well. In B-127, I see that you managed to survive Redwing's pursuit all those years ago. Bumblebee jumped up onto the boulder and jabbed a thumb to himself. Yeah well, ZRKT, if it wasn't obvious, ZRKT, he tore out my, ZRKT, voice box. The yellow bug swiped his arms out for emphasis. ZRKT, and I am not happy. He pointed straight at Starscream to make his final point. ZRTK, oh, and the names, ZRKT, Bumblebee. Starscream stared in silence at the little yellow bot, for all of 2 seconds before he let out a boisterous laugh. Bah ha ha ha, Bumblebee. Wah, what kind of name is that? The Autobots and Izuku glowered at Starscream as he put his thumb and forefinger together. Did you just find some sort of earth insect and just decide, yes, this is what I wish to be called? It's perfect for a bot of my stature. Ah ha ha. Izuku pursed his lips and gave a frustrated grumble before standing up, making his presence known. Hey, stop insulting his name, my friend, and I gave it to him, just so you know. Izuku. Prime whipped his head around and pointed to the boulder. Get back down, now. However, it was too late. Starscream had seen him. Ooh, and what do we have here? He watched as Bumblebee scooped Izuku up into his hands, though the greenette didn't take his eyes off Starscream for a second. Why yes. I recognize you. You were with the impudent younglings who destroyed one of my Viacons. Izuku rubbed the back of his head, feeling his confidence dwindle at the mention of the incident. Why yeah, well. I must say, your comrades' tactics were brutal and efficient. Starscream commended, clapping his hands much to Izuku's shock. Well done indeed. Even Lord Megatron was taken off guard when I showed him. That made everyone do a double take. Megatron, Optimus whispered. He is here. Oh, no, he is not on Earth, Prime. Starscream assured, though he visibly rolled his optics. Seriously, do you expect a pompous blowhard like him to set foot on a backwater world such as this when he has us do all the dirty work for him? He waved off the Autobot commander before shifting his focus to Izuku. That said, given you and your comrades' impressive and grotesque offense, little human, Lord Megatron has actually deemed this planet a viable threat, so congratulations. Earth is now a prime target for the Emperor of Destruction himself. Starscream made sure to put air quotes around that title for good measure. All of the color faded from Izuku's complexion at those words alone. Crap, we got the attention of the Decepticon leader thanks to us killing that Viacon. But Optimus was quick to bring up another point. Well, if that is the case, then why has he not come to the planet? He narrowed his optics at Starscream, who simply stood with his arms crossed and a smirk plastered across his face. Surely he must want to oversee the invasion of the planet. Starscream rolled his optics with a scoff. PSH, you and I both, Prime. However, after seeing what these organic creatures are capable of, our esteemed and wise Lord Megatron instead saw it fit to keep our presence on this planet a secret for the time being. He raised his hand up and waved it nonchalantly, sarcasm dripping from his voice. Something about wanting to make sure that we could counter the beings of this planet should they prove to be a viable threat or what have you. The Seeker clenched a fist in ire. Bah, if you ask me, it just gives him more excuses to be lazy and sit in his ivory tower back on Cybertron while we do all the work. ZRKT, you always did have a problem with him. Bumblebee pointed it out. That's putting it mildly, Starscream admitted before raising a finger. But, I believe that I have come up with a solution that will fix that problem. Optimus raised an optic ridge. This isn't another one of your scrap-brained schemes to overthrow Megatron again, is it? Starscream pouted and snapped his finger to the Prime. Hey, the bomb would have worked if it hadn't gotten caught on Mudflap's face by mistake, the poor sap. He shook his head as he got back on track. But no, this time, my plan to usurp Megatron will work, namely because I will have your help. What? Optimus' grip on his gun tightened as he aimed it at Starscream's head. Starscream, you must be living in a stasis dream if. Now, Optimus, I think we can all say that we're tired of fighting this war. Starscream interrupted. I know you are, and I know for certain that I am. For 300 stellar cycles, my crew and I have done nothing but go from solar system to solar system searching for Autobot stragglers and taking them out just because Megatron said so, all in the attempt to finally find where you are located. He outstretched his arms to emphasize his point. And now that I've found you, I think we can find some common ground. After all, it's obvious that you are here to locate the Lost Ark, and we all wish to see Cybertron return to its former glory, don't we? Well, the only way that'll happen is if Megatron is out of the picture. He extended a hand with an inviting grin. So, what do you say? My Decepticons and your Autobots team up, we find the Ark, bring it back to Cybertron and then go directly to Megatron and take him out. Sound like a plan? There was a long, silent pause, with Bumblebee and Izuku glancing at one another worriedly while Optimus simply stared at Starscream's hand. However, it didn't take long for the Autobot leader to glance up to the Air Commander skeptically and ask, "What's the catch?" Starscream blinked before balking at the notion. Bah, catch? What catch? There is no catch. But Prime's skeptic stare didn't let up, to which Starscream sighed and rolled his optics. Alright, fine, perhaps I would like to have a position of power or three in the new age of Cybertron, but... No. Prime refused without a second thought. Starscream, I would never agree to such outrageous terms in the first place, but a Cybertron under your leadership would likely be much worse than anything Megatron could ever do. Oh, come on. Starscream whined. Surely you can't possibly think that I could do a worse job at leading the Decepticons. Megatron may have conquered Cybertron, but he refuses to do anything with the rest of the universe until you are eliminated. He pointed to Optimus in contempt. Meanwhile, I've been saying that we should move on from Cybertron for eons now and find the other colony worlds to conquer them as well. You do know that you basically outed yourself right there, right? Izuku pointed out. I mean, I had a feeling you were lying to Optimus before, but... Silence. Starscream raised his null ray and fired at Izuku and Bumblebee, only for the latter to scoop the human up and dive back behind the boulder. You know what? Fine. Enough with the pleasantries. FWOOSH. The Air Commander took to the skies again, his rocket feet propelling himself into the air. I tried to be the better bot about this, Prime, but you have left us no choice. Optimus zeroed in on Starscream and aimed his ion blaster skyward. You were misguided, Starscream. I believe that we could work together to bring peace to Cybertron, but your lust for power clouds us. Starscream's smirk increased when the Prime realized his wording. Indeed. Oh Barricade. Please show our little yellow friend and the fleshling a good time. From off in the distance, the group heard a loud police siren begin to rapidly approach them. And from down the gorge's path, a black, white and dark gray Datsun Fairlady Z300 police cruiser came rushing at them. And it was headed straight for Bumblebee and Izuku. With pleasure. Barricade said before his two guns popped out from his hood, and he began raining down laser fire upon the duo. Bumblebee, get Izuku away from here. Optimus warned with a swipe of his arm. Bumblebee didn't have to be told twice as he transformed into his beetle form and drove away, much to Izuku's dismay. Hey! Bumblebee, wait. Izuku pounded against the glass window in protest, but Bumblebee didn't give an inch. We can't just leave Optimus back there. He needs help. The Autobot scout was quick to reassure Izuku the best he could, even if he too was nervous about the whole situation. ZRKT, don't worry, ZRKT, the ground, ZRKT, bridge will open, ZRTK, in just a few seconds. Boom. One of Barricade's lasers suddenly struck the ground directly next to them, causing Bumblebee to lurch up on two wheels from its force. Izuku held onto the seat and let out a fearful scream while Bumblebee regained himself as fast as possible, hitting solid dirt on all four tires. ZRKT, I hope. Get back here you little bug. Barricade bellowed, pursuing his target with great speed that he increased by the second. Unfortunately for him, Bumblebee was able to match his speed and keep ahead of him, which frustrated the officer to no end. Gah, come on, how the pit are you staying ahead of me? ZRKT, sheer determination. Barricade put on the brakes and screeched to a halt, flipping over in his vehicle mode as he transformed. The rear of the Datsun unfurled and rotated to form his legs and feet while his arms came out of his undercarriage, the doors opening up to form a pair of wings on his back. The front of the car became his chest and his head popped up from his hood, an immediate scowl forming on his face as he took out a laser rifle and aimed it at Bumblebee. Well, let's see where that gets ya. Pew pew pew. Barricade unleashed a volley of laser fire, which created several plumes of smoke when they hit the ground before finally. Blam! A pained buzz came from Bumblebee as he was shot in the rear bumper, the impact making him once again lurch up onto two wheels. Unfortunately, this time there was no stopping his momentum as he was flung forward, first onto his hood and then his roof. He slid to a halt and transformed into robot mode, his head spinning while Barricade stalked his way over. Ha ha ha, how's that determination working out for you now, Autobot? Barricade mocked before holstering his gun, only to pull out a much more threatening weapon out from behind his back. It appeared to be some sort of handheld buzzsaw weapon, one that sported a mostly red and black color scheme with some gold detailing throughout. In particular, the circular saw itself was mostly black, but its sharp edges were all colored blood red. Bumblebee's optics widened as the saw buzzed to life in Barricade's hands. Say your prayers, Autobum. The Decepticon officer took a swing at Bumblebee, but the yellow bot was able to roll out of the way at the last second. With a flick of his arm, Bumblebee transformed his hands into his stingers and began firing energy bolts at his opponent, only for Barricade to sidestep and dodge them. With a mighty battle cry, Barricade once again closed in on his target, bringing his saw weapon down to cleave him in half. But B was still a step ahead, bringing out both stingers and crossing them to block the saw and knock it out of the con's hands. Gah, oh, you did it now. Barricade brought up his shoulder cannons and blasted Bumblebee straight in the chest, the scout buzzing in agony again as he was knocked onto his back. The black and purple Decepticon swiftly rushed up and slammed his foot into Bumblebee's chest, kicking him over onto his front side before slamming his foot down on his chest. MHA. Good try, Autobot. Barricade brought out his laser gun and took aim at the back of Bumblebee's head. But I think it's time that you and that little human friend of yours be. However, Barricade trailed off the moment he saw Bumblebee smirking underneath his mouthguard. And it was only then that he realized, he hadn't seen the human since he blasted Bumblebee the first time. With a scowl forming on his features, Barricade lowered himself down and pressed the barrel of his gun to Bumblebee's head. You have exactly 10 astroseconds to tell me where your little organic friend is, or all, twonk. What the, twonk, ah, stop that. Bumblebee's head snapped around to see Izuku standing several feet away from their location, and he was throwing rocks at Barricade's head. Get away from my friend. He shouted with a waver in his voice. I'm warning you. Barricade blinked his optics a couple times, and then broke out into laughter. Hee hee, ahahaha. Ahahaha. The Decepticon held his forehead as he erupted in an uproarious guffaw that left Izuku stunned and scared all at once, though Barricade was quick to regain control of himself. Ahaha, oh, by Primus, that was rich. If throwing rocks is the best that you can do, Fleshling, I've got news for ya. Maybe it's time you get a load of what a Decepticon is capable of. Barricade set his sights over to his fallen buzzsaw weapon and spoke to it. Time to take some initiative, little buddy. Izuku's face scrunched up, perplexed by what Barricade was saying. What, little buddy? What are you talking about? WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. The young Quark inheritor cut himself off when he heard that familiar conversion sound, seeing Bumblebee's eyes widen in terror. Shakily, Izuku moved his head around, and sure enough, he saw the handheld saw begin to transform. The sides of the weapon popped out to form a pair of arms, while the main bulk of the weapon unfurled into a pair of legs and a torso. Said torso, oddly enough, had a big cavity in the center of it, though that spot was immediately filled when the saw blade folded into it, the sharp edges sticking out of its chest and back. Finally, a small, blocky head popped out from the top of the torso as the astonishingly small robot landed on its feet. Though using the word, small, was in relation to the other Cybertronians, because this one was just a bit bigger than a common human. It had blocky limbs with red shoulders and legs with black painted forearms and thighs. His main body was black, though there were some gold details on his pectorals, and of course the black and red buzzsaw that protruded from his chest. His gleaming red visor focused right onto Izuku, all while a manic grin overtook the small Decepticon's features. "Nyeh hee hee hee. With pleasure, partner," he said as he popped his metal knuckles. "Been a while since I've been able to cut loose. Ah ha ha." Izuku's eyes had dilated to the size of peas at the sight, trembling with fear as he stepped back. What? B but, how, what, who? All very fine questions, fleshy. Ah ha ha. The diminutive Khan cackled as the buzzsaw in his chest began to spin. But to make a long story short, I'm a mini Khan. My kind usually partner up with bigger bots to help give him a little power boost. Gia. Izuku let out a scream and ducked to the side as the crazy mini Khan lunged toward him, narrowly avoiding being sliced by the buzzsaw. Oh, and the name's Frenzy. Ah ha ha. ZRKT, Izuku, ZRKT, run. Crack. Bumblebee let out another sound of anguish as Barricade stepped on the small of his back, all while he watched Izuku make a break from Frenzy and toward a narrow path through a crevice not too far away. The scout balled his fists in anger as Frenzy gave chase and set his optics back down to Barricade, who merely scoffed at him. PSH, don't act so brash, auto scum. The officer pulled up his laser rifle again and aimed it between Bumblebee's optics. Once I'm finished with you and Frenzy takes care of your little human friend, we're gonna find the rest of your Autobot friends, put them in chains and then present them to Lord Megatron. Hopefully then we can get this war done and over with so we can, Zeet. HHRRK. As Barricade was talking though, Bumblebee had brought his stinger back out and hit him in the foot with it, paralyzing him from top to bottom. The yellow bug slunk out from beneath the Khan and stood back up, and while he was still shorter than Barricade, he couldn't help but smirk at his handiwork. ZRKT, you talk too much. With a good kick to the leg, Bumblebee knocked Barricade onto his face and transformed, driving in the direction Izuku and Frenzy took off in. Izuku meanwhile, wasn't having such a good time. He had made a break for the narrow crevice path hoping that the stone walls would be too narrow for Frenzy to pursue him in. Unfortunately, though, come out, wherever you are, that wasn't the case. Frenzy hummed to himself as he searched for Izuku, which only served to frighten the young man more as he hid behind a nearby boulder. He could practically hear Frenzy's buzzsaw revving up as he drew nearer, his cackling making Izuku shiver. Hee hee hee, don't be scared little human, I won't hurt ya, much. This is bad, I need an escape plan, Izuku thought to himself, furrowing his brow as he considered his options. Let's see, I can probably throw some rocks to distract him first. As for potential escape routes, climbing is out of the question since he'd see me immediately. I can't go back the way I came since Bumblebee is still dealing with Barricade. So that leave me with. Ah, Izuku screamed, whipping around to see Frenzy having hopped up onto the boulder with his crazy grin. How did you find me? You were mumbling yourself, Frenzy declared, thinking of ways to escape, are we? Izuku couldn't help but feel his gut drop at that. Betrayed by my own bad habits. With his rather manic grin sending chills down the boy's spine, Frenzy cackled some more as his buzzsaw began spinning. Hee, so what'll it be, short stuff? Y'all want the quick way of going out? He lifted his arm and his hand retracted into his wrist, only to be replaced by a metal shock rod that began surging with electrical energy. Or y'all want the more excruciating way? Y'all know what? Why not just go with both? Bahahaha. Ah. Izuku began scrambling away from Frenzy as fast as he could, the red and black mini-con's feet pattering along the ground before bursting forward as well. And unfortunately, he proved to be faster than his target, catching up with him in no time. And what made matters worse, was that the crevice had come to a sharp end, the stone walls coming together and leaving Izuku with nowhere to run. No. Please, no. How about yes? Frenzy said in delight as he raised his shock prod. Izuku's legs shook beneath him, realizing that his options were exhausted. I have no choice, I have to use one for all. With his teeth grit and a scowl plastered on his features, Izuku raised his hand and readied his fingers for a flick, channeling one for all into them. You want me, Frenzy? Well, come and get me. Frenzy started forward immediately. With pleasure. Ahaha. He made to slam his prod into Izuku's midsecond, only for a sudden bright light to shine from behind him and make him halt. Huh, what the, ah. A gasp escaped from both him and Izuku at the sight of a ground bridge portal having opened up, and from out of it came 7 faces that Izuku was relieved to see. Kyoka, Momo, Tenya, Ochako, Denki, Eijiro and Mina all came sprawling out of the portal, and all of them felt nauseous upon landing on their feet. Oh god. Eijiro covered his mouth, his complexion growing slightly pale. I don't feel so good. Yeah, going through a ground bridge will do that to ya. Kyoka affirmed. You'll get used to it, hopefully. The punk rocker snapped her head up and smiled at the sight of her best friend. Izuku. There you, what the hell? The others all looked up as well and were taken aback by the sight of the human-sized Cybertronian in front of them, and Frenzy seemed none too happy at their presence either. Who's the shrimpy guy? Frenzy grimaced and pointed at her. The name's Frenzy. And, who are you callin' shrimp, skinny femme? That made Kyoka's eyes widen in anger immediately. Skinny. Why you little? Kyoka, get back, Izuku warned. Do you not see the buzzsaw and the prod? Oh, I see it. Kyoka smirked. And I think we can deal with it. Frenzy balked at the suggestion. Bah, don't make me laugh, though admittedly, that ain't hard. Ahaha. His maniacal grin came back and he started charging at the other humans. Ah well, the green guy can wait. Let's see how he likes it when I kill all of you. Ha ha ha. Mina, how about we play a game of, the floor is lava? Kyoka suggested. Catching onto the idea, Mina's eyes brightened up and she pumped a fist. Ooh, good idea. He should get a kick out of this. The pink girl extended her hands and an instant burst of acid came shooting from out of her palms, aimed right for Frenzy's path. Surf's up, Frenzy. Huh, what are you on abo? It burns. It burns. The Decepticon mini-con started dancing around from foot to foot the second he stepped in Mina's acid, and even when he got out of it, there was still an intense burning feeling in his feet. He glowered at the team, fighting through the pain as he continued his charge with his buzzsaw on full throttle. Ooh, you're gonna pay for that. It was then that Izuku got an idea of his own. Kirishima, can you stop his buzzsaw? A smirk came to the spiky redhead's features as he hardened himself up. Oh, I bet I can. With a determined roar, Eijiro charged right back at Frenzy and rammed himself into the bot's midsection, bringing him to a halt while also taking the brunt of the buzzsaw. However, after getting a good grip on it, Eijiro actually managed to stop the weapon. MHA. How'd y'all like that, Chuckles? Ooh, interesting, Frenzy admitted, but futile. He raised his prod over his head and made to bring it down. Bet your little power can't counter this. But just as it was about to hit Eijiro, Denki rushed up and grabbed the prod, absorbing its electric energy with no trouble. Maybe his can't, but for an electric-type quirk user like me, this is nothing. What? Impossible. I can't believe you, yeah. Frenzy felt a sudden surge go through him as his knees gave out, courtesy of none other than Kyoka jabbing him with her jacks. Sorry dude, but you were starting to get on my nerves. Kyoka set her sights onto Ochako, Momo and Tenya with a nod. Guys, mind wrapping this up? Gladly. Momo nodded before bringing her hand up and activating her quirk, creating a quick drying glue-like substance from her hand that shot out toward Frenzy, sticking his buzzsaw in place along with his hands. Ochako, use your quirk. The brunette rushed forward and raised her hand. Already on it, Ochako's fingertips touched Frenzy's shoulder, and he began floating up high in the air instantly. Iida, do it. MHA. What the? Frenzy had managed to recollect himself and tried moving his limbs and buzzsaw, only to find that both were stuck. What the heck is this stuff? And why am I floating? Let me down, you little pests. Tenya prepped himself for a long jump as the engines in his legs powered up, narrowing his sights onto the floating Frenzy. Apologies, but that will not happen. Let's see how you like being tormented. FWOOSH. Take this. Wham! With a burst of speed, Tenya rushed forward and sent a powerful kick into Frenzy, making the mini-con grunt in pain as he was sent flying backward toward the crevice's dead end, where he was met by a rather vengeful Izuku Midoriya, the greenette having raised his hand once more. With the power of One for All flowing into his fingertips, he faced his tormentor head-on and said, "Sayonara, Frenzy." With a flick of his finger, Izuku created a huge burst of wind, sending the weightless mini-con screaming up high into the air, before Ochako released her quirk and sending him careening back down to them. Frenzy landed in a heap before them, and while he was still online, he was too heavily damaged to continue. You guys suck. URK. As Frenzy slipped into unconsciousness, the students all stared at him with wide eyes, a feeling of dread beginning to overtake them. Crap, 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 crap. Izuku's hands flew up to his head as he began to panic, his focus diverted from his now broken finger. I took it too far. I took it way too far. Whoa, whoa, relax Izuku. Everyone whipped themselves around as Windblade stepped through the ground bridge, followed closely by RC, Jazz, Bulkhead, Strongarm, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. The city speaker strolled over to Frenzy and scanned him, smiling as she came to her conclusion, he's just slipped into a brief stasis. He should wake up within the next few cycles. Izuku and the others let out sighs of relief, the quirk inheritor placing a hand to his chest. Oh, phew. Ha, I'm glad that's the case. Also, ow. He balled his hand with the broken finger up into a fist, all while Kyoka took a closer look at it. HMPH, I hope what Optimus has in mind for training works. OU, Optimus. Oh shit, that's right. Kyoka realized as well. Where is he? And where's Bumblebee? Ochako added. But, as if to answer her question, the group heard a car horn come blaring out from down the crevice path, and soon enough, Bumblebee came revving up to them in his vehicle mode. With a happy buzz, he transformed and sprinted the rest of the way, picking Izuku up in a hug which he was more than happy to receive. Haha, Bumblebee, you're okay. ZRKT, you betcha. But what about Barricade? Izuku asked. How'd you get away from him? Bumblebee winked and brought out one of his stingers. ZRKT, I sting like a bee. However, Strongarm was quick to take note of the name that Izuku mentioned, and her metal brow quickly furrowed. Barricade. He's on Earth. Grah. With a hard punch, Strongarm slammed her fist into the crevice wall, cracking it and shocking everyone. Blast it. Why did he have to come here? The humans all eyed one another confusedly before Tenya piped up. Strongarm. What exactly is the issue with Barricade? Is he a particularly brutal Decepticon? Brutal is definitely a word that can describe him, Tenya. Bulkhead affirmed. Along with, traitor, lawbreaker, snitch, killer, dishonorable, and... Okay Strongarm, they get it. Sideswipe said with a roll of his optics, making Strongarm glare at him. He set his eyes on the kids as he explained further. See, Barricade used to be a high-ranking officer in the Cybertron police force back before the war broke out. Sunstreaker jumped in at that moment. But just before things broke down between the Autobots and Decepticons, it was discovered that Barricade's methods weren't as truthful to the law enforcement code as everyone thought. The yellow bot shook his head. He was a crooked cop, and when the Decepticons began their initial assault, Barricade sided with them. Sideswipe jabbed a thumb over to Strongarm. And let's just say that misrules and regulations didn't take that too well. Strongarm pursed her lips at that, but nonetheless raised her fist in ire. He's the reason why I lost one of my closest academy friends. He led an assault on the Yakan police headquarters and we were separated in the blaze. I never found her after that. The teens all wore sympathetic expression as Momo placed a hand over her chest. Oh my gosh, Strongarm, I don't know what to say. It's okay, Momo, that happened a long time ago. The cadet grimaced as she turned around toward the opposite end of the crevice. But let me assure you, if he's back there, then he won't be getting away from us. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. Strongarm transformed into her Jeep Gladiator mode and her sirens began blaring as her tires spun. Let's roll. Wait, Strongarm. RC implored, but it was too late. Strongarm had zoomed off down the crevice path and toward the battle, the pink femme sighing and shaking her head. We need a plan. Optimus needs our help more than anything. She's right. Izuku affirmed, his and Bumblebee's features etched with seriousness. He's dealing with Starscream right now, but we're not sure how well he's doing. Jazz placed his hands to his hips and nodded toward Izuku. Well, then I guess we'll have to help turn the tide. Autobots, transform and start your engines. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. All at once, the Autobots all converted into their vehicle modes, ready to roll out and join the fray. But before they left, Jazz spoke to the humans one more time. You cats stay here and watch over Frenzy. We'll take care o' things from here, ya dig? You got it, Jazz. Kyoka gave a thumbs up. Good luck. With that, the Autobots all began driving after Strongarm, leaving the teens by themselves with the unconscious Mini-Con. Izuku felt his legs give out from underneath him and he collapsed to the ground, his hand going to his forehead. Man, this day really didn't turn out how I expected it to be, that's for sure. Yeah, you're telling me. Denki agreed, taking a seat on Frenzy's leg. I mean, first Sunstreaker tries blasting me to keep me on my toes, then a random Decepticon attack happens. Insane, he received questioning glanced from the rest of the group, with Kyoka in particular looked rather perturbed. Denki raised his hands defensively and added, I mean, that's not to say the rest of you didn't have a tough time training, it's just. But Eijiro cut him off with a wave. Relax dude, we get it. He crossed his arms and craned his head skyward. I just wish we could do more to help us all. Immediately, Tenya began chopping the air with his stiff movements once again. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, people. We've done quite enough already in dealing with Frenzy here. He snapped his arms over toward the direction of the ongoing fight. The last thing we need to do is interfere in a battle where we don't belong, right? Momo nodded at that. You're right, Iida, there's no need to throw ourselves into even more danger than we already, wait. The raven-haired beauty trailed off and scanned her eyes across the group, and took notice of a certain someone missing. Has anyone seen Mina? Everyone was at attention the very next second. What? She was standing right next to me just a second ago. Ochako spun around in search of her friend, calling out to her. Mina, where'd you go? Crap, Izuku stood up and sent a worried gaze down the crevice path. You don't think she actually followed the Autobots, did you? That's impossible, Tenya denied. To do so, she'd have to be even faster than me. Unless, shit, Kyoka balled her fist in frustration. Mina might have climbed into Bulkhead instantly after he transformed. She could have slipped in as his doors were closing. She turned to the rest of her group and pointed toward the battle, relaying a new plan. Okay, change of plans, we're going after them and getting Mina out of there. As she thought, however, Tenya was quick to object. Now wait just a moment. The Autobots gave us direct orders to stay here and guard Frenzy. If Mina really did sneak off with Bulkhead, he's bound to notice her inside him sooner or later, and I have no doubt he'll protect her. Kyoka raised a brow right back at him. Okay, and if he doesn't notice she's in him? What then? She could get seriously hurt. Izuku stepped up and got in between the two. As much as I hate to admit it, Iida, Kyoka has a point. We should at least warn Bulkhead about Mina being with him. By Tenya's disapproving stare, he could tell that he still wasn't a big fan of the plan, but Izuku had a solution. We won't interfere any more than that, okay. We'll stay as far away as possible and just relay the message to Bulkhead, that's it. Very well. Tenya sighed relentingly before pointing to Frenzy. But what about him? Way ahead of Iida. Much to everyone's shock, Eijiro had hardened himself up and started hefting the large, clunky body of Frenzy over his shoulder, albeit quite awkwardly given the buzzsaw. Hee, don't worry guys, this guy ain't that heavy compared to what I usually lift. I got this in the ag. Clunk. The group watched as Eijiro lost balance, falling face first to the ground as Frenzy toppled over him. Maybe I could use some assistance. Back out near the river, Optimus could feel himself slowing down considerably. The fight between him and Starscream had been going on for several minutes now, in which they went hand to hand, blasted at each other several times, and much to Prime's chagrin, it wasn't getting them anywhere. And to make matters worse, as much as he didn't want to admit it, he was starting to get exhausted. Granted, fighting Starscream was no easy task, but at the same time, it was worrying since he had noticed the same thing had happened when he battled Shatter and Dropkick. His energy levels were much lower than usual since he had woken up, and it was beginning to show considerably. Oh, Optimus, feeling a little rusty, are we? Starscream noted as he reached up to his right wing, pulling off the top section that unfolded into a long sword that lit up with a vibrant purple energy. It would seem that your time in stasis has taken its toll on you. When was the last time you were fully energized? That does not matter, Starscream. Optimus retorted as his hand retracted, allowing his Energon axe to spring to life. No matter how tired I am, I will still fight you. Starscream scoffed at that. HMPH, heroic to the bitter end. You Autobots are always so noble, it makes me sick. Grah. With a sharp battle cry, Starscream raised his blade up and began charging at Optimus, ready to finish the fight. Now die, Prime. But Optimus still had a considerable amount of fight left in him, which he used to counter Starscream's sword with a powerful axe swing. Starscream kept at it, but Prime managed to counter every strike that the Decepticon Air Commander sent his way, which only frustrated him all the more. Arg. Why won't you go down? Prime blocked another axe swing and narrowed his optics at Starscream. Because the safety of this planet is worth fighting for. Pathetic. Starscream raised his leg and kicked Optimus in the midsection, sending him staggering backward before he slammed back first into the nearby mountain wall. The second in command raised his arm and aimed his null ray at the Prime, who stood shakily up to his feet. You know, you really should have taken my offer, Prime. At least when I inevitably would have stabbed you in the back, it would have been much quicker than this. Commander Starscream. The Seeker's head snapped up and around to see Barricade come lumbering toward him, the officer's legs wobbling as he ran. We've got a situation. Barricade. What are you doing here? I ordered you to dispose of Bumblebee and the human. The Decepticon cop came to a halt, his hands resting on his knees as he explained. Well, yeah, about that. I dispatched Frenzy to take care of the human, but the bug managed to paralyze me with his stingers before going after them. Starscream rolled his optics and sighed. Well, at least you gave Frenzy an appropriate mission. If anyone can dispose of a simple human, he can. Barricade's hand went to the back of his head nervously. Yeah, well, that's actually not the end of it, sir. He pointed downstream and said, see for yourself. What could you possibly, what? Starscream's optics snapped open as he saw Bumblebee come rolling back onto the scene, along with Jazz, Windblade, RC, Bulkhead, Strongarm, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. The 8 Autobots transformed and pulled out their weapons immediately, taking aim at Starscream. Scrap. Took the words right out of my mouth, Screamer. Jazz agreed, his subsonic repeater aimed directly at the Seeker. Now hands where we can see him and step away from Prime. Strongarm took up an energy crossbow in her hands and aimed it square at Barricade. And Officer Barricade, you are under arrest for several crimes against the Yakan City Police Force. Both of you get down on the ground, now. Optimus. Windblade and Bumblebee rushed over to their leader, helping him stand up. Are you alright? You're not hurt, are you? And no, Windblade. Optimus assured. Just a bit low on energy is all. I hadn't realized how low I actually was, really. We need to get you back to base and have Red do an Energon infusion. Windblade concurred. You need it, badly. As the Autobots chattered, Starscream felt his optic twitch and he whirled back around to his subordinate. Grr, Barricade, can't you do anything right? Barricade glared back and snapped, yeah, well maybe if you were more focused on what was going on instead of just Optimus, maybe wouldn't be in this situation. What do I think I have you for, fool? Starscream grumbled before putting his attention back onto Jazz. And as for you, Lieutenant, I would suggest not counting your protoforms before they hatch. But Sideswipe just shook his head. PFF'd, please. Do you not see that we outnumber you 9-2? However, right as he said that, a sudden flash of light erupted not too far away, followed shortly by a ground bridge portal opening up. Every Cybertronian set their eyes onto the portal, and immediately, several dark, wedge-shaped aircraft came flying out of it. They almost appeared to be wheel-less cars with forward-swept wings, all of them flying upwards into the sky before transforming and falling to the ground. In an instant, the Autobots were faced with at least 6 Viacons, all of them aiming their blasters at them. The team all eyed Sideswipe with irritated looks. Me and my big fat vocal processor. Yeah, not your best call there, kiddo. The bots were all surprised to hear another voice come from the portal, and the very next moment, a slender green, tan and orange femme came waltzing out of it. Her black painted lips were curled up into a grin as she kept a single hand to her hip, her yellow eyes zeroed in on Sideswipe. Ya might wanna reevaluated the numbers here, huh? Windblade's jaw dropped at the sight of the female Decepticon. Swift. Hey, if it isn't Windblade. Swift raised a hand in greeting. Last I saw ya, we had a little spat in Cown. It's been way too long, lemme tell ya. Not long enough. Windblade's wings sprung out from her back as the VTOL fans began to glow blue. Didn't think you'd be on this team of cons. Yeah, well, Lord Megatron's a convincing talker. Swift's optics went over to Starscream and she gave a laugh. Hee hee, but hey, someone's gotta keep Screamer here in line, right? Starscream grumbled as he shook a finger at her. Swift, normally I would be very cross with you for interrupting, however, given the situation, it's rather fortuitous that you came. He wrung his hands together eagerly as he and Barricade stepped over with the other Decepticon goons, ready for a counterattack. Now we have an even advantage. Everyone, feel free to inflict any damage you see fit, just make sure that Optimus Prime remains alive. Sounds good to me. Swift agreed as she balled her fists up, her focus locked onto Windblade. So, Windy, I see ya managed to survive so. Just then, those same fists began to glow with an intense green energy as Swift's smirk increased. Let's fix that, shall we? Bring it. Windblade accepted. With his hand raised and his finger pointed toward the enemy, Starscream gave his order, Decepticons, attack. Prime stood tall and exchanged his Energon axe for his Ion Blaster, choosing to stay at long range for the time being. Autobots, engage the enemy. With simultaneous battle cries, the Autobots surged forth, each taking on their own Viacon while Windblade and Swift closed the distance between one another. As for Strongarm, she zeroed in on Barricade immediately, transforming into her vehicle mode to ram into him. But before she could, the bad cop jumped up and actually landed on her roof, gripping his hands onto her before kneeing her in the tailgate. Haha, nice try, cadet. But there's a reason why you never graduated the academy, so I suggest you, gah. Strongarm suddenly lurched to the side and made herself tumble over, throwing Barricade into the nearby river as she transformed again. She took out her crossbow and aimed it directly at him. Yeah, and that reason was you destroyed it before I could. She fired a couple of times, but Barricade was able to get to his feet. But just as he was about to reach for his own laser rifle, Strongarm charged right at him and delivered a swift kick to his chest, making Barricade fall to his back and allowing her to plant a foot on his chest. But all the same, Barricade couldn't help but laugh. Bahaha. Yeah, that was great. Prowl's face was priceless, wasn't it, URK? You killed so many bots that day. Strongarm admonished, her voice beginning to crack. Stakeout, fix it, Red Heat, Sea-Watch, Nitra. Her grip on her crossbow increased as she took in a shaky breath. And all for the sake of your jealousy of Sergeant Prowl. I'm going to make sure that you do the time for everything that you've done. It was then that she heard a dark chuckle escape Barricade's vocal processor, and she sneered down at him. What's so funny? Ah, nothing. Barricade answered with a smirk. It's just, those names brought up so many memories. Especially Nitra's, hee hee. He raised a metal brow to Strongarm knowingly. Ya know, Regs, that friend of yours. I like to think that she and I weren't so different in terms of our view of the law. I like to think she would have joined me if given the clang. Ow. Shut your mouth. Strongarm barked as she pulled out a pair of stasis cuffs. That's it. You're going down. Ah. Before she could take another step, Strongarm was suddenly engulfed in purple electricity, which was coming from a small device that had been planted on her foot. Barricade now stood up on dry land, smiling proudly as he held a remote control in his hands. Hey, I still kept some electrocapacitors from way back when. He watched as Strongarm fell to her knees in the water, which didn't help her one bit. Now, maybe you'll be a good little cadet and remember where your place is. Crash. Ack. Barricade fell to the stone bank as Bumblebee collided into his back, the VW bug transforming into robot mode to stomp on the remote the moment it fell out of the cop's hands. What? How? We sicked a Viacon on ya. Bumblebee buzzed happily as he pointed behind Barricade, right toward the paralyzed Viacon that laid convulsing on the ground. Barricade facepalmed and shook his head. I dunno what I was expecting. B rushed over and removed the electrocapacitor from Strongarm's foot, helping her up at the same time. Ha, thanks for the assist, B. Strongarm gave her friend a small fist bump before taking up her crossbow again. Now come on, let's bring this con to justice. As that was going on, Windblade and Swift were engaged in close quarters combat, the city speaker doing all she could to keep up with the Green Femme's quick and violent strikes. Gia, Raw, Hiya. With every swipe of her glowing green hands, Swift was countered with swings of the Stormfall sword, her metal fingers scraping against the blade and making sparks as the energy collided. Swift jumped back with the aid of her propellers and rolled her shoulders, loosening up her joints. Gotta admit, Windy, you've gotten better. 300 stellar cycles of roaming the cosmos will do that for you. Windblade countered before bracing herself against the ground. But I've got a few other tricks, vroom. From the fans in her wings, Windblade unleashed twin blasts of wind energy, which struck the ground directly in front of Swift. But right before they did, Swift jumped again, her propellers aiding her. Funny, because I have a few of my own. But I do have one thing that you don't. Oh yeah, and what's that? Pew pew pew. Ah. As the null ray blast struck her in the back, Windblade fell to her knees as Starscream loomed over her. Ah. Well done, Swift. Starscream praised. You always were good at causing distractions. Swift came in for a landing, though she failed to notice a certain bot sneaking up from behind. Yeah, well I probably could have handled her myself, but I figured since you started this whole thing, you should. Blam. Ow. From out of nowhere, a blue laser beam struck Swift in the side and sent her careening downward, and she ended up crashing into Starscream. Ack. Swift. You incompetent fool, get out of my. What did you call me? Swift barked, her glowing hand flying right up to Starscream's face. Starscream quickly put on an apologetic grin, raising his hands in defense. I mean, my wonderful assistant. If you would be so kind as to remove yourself from my person. Windblade shook off the paralyzing feeling of the null ray just in time for a blue hand to offer her assistance. She glanced up and Prime standing there, keeping his ion blaster aimed at the duo. She smiled, took his hand, allowing him to hoist her up. Thanks for the assist, Prime. I have no idea how Starscream managed to sneak up on me like that. No problem at all, Windblade. Optimus assured, readying his blaster again. Now, shall we take care of both of these two? Windblade took up her sword once more with an eager grin. Took the words right out of my mouth. Several feet away, the other Autobots were all engaged in their own fights against the Viacon forces. Some such as Jazz and Sunstreaker had chosen to stay further back and take a more ranged approach, while Sideswipe and RC had taken up the exact opposite mindset. Getting in as close as possible to their opponents and use their hand-to-hand skills to dispatch them. Sideswipe in particular was being a bit of a show-off with his feat of acrobatics, kick-flipping off of one Viacon's head in order to bring another one to the ground with a big slam. You cons seem to be a bit rusty. Has floating through space dulled your fighting skills or something? Grah. A particular Viacon surged up from behind and went to tackle Sideswipe, snapping indignantly, "You'll pay for that kinda talk, Autobot." See, that's kinda what I'm talking about. With a quick swivel, Sideswipe's shoulder-mounted missile launcher rotated around and aimed right at the Viacon, taking it off guard just long enough before FWOOM. Boom! A huge cavity was blasted through the Viacon's chest and it fell over, effectively deactivated. If you were smart, you wouldn't announce your presence like that in a sneak attack. Sideswipe, quit showing off, would you? RC admonished lightly as she gave an uppercut to another Viacon. I think you've proven your point. Yeah, ya might wanna get your head in the game before you get taken off guard. Jazz agreed while shooting another con in the shoulder. There's plenty of times I could name where you were on the opposite end of where you are now. But Sideswipe simply waved them off. That's all in the past. I've gotten a lot better at being aware of stuff around me, right Sunstreaker? Can't talk. The yellow bot dismissed while firing more shots from his solar flare gun. Kinda busy making sure that I don't. Pew. Gee-aha. Sunstreaker yelped and jumped as he felt a laser brush past his shoulder, his hand snapping up to cover the spot that had been grazed. Please don't be bad, please don't be bad. He removed his hand, and felt his insides retch. There, right before his very optics, was a black burn mark from the laser, seared into his beautiful paint. No. My paint. Why? The entire group deadpanned at the melodramatic bot, which distracted Sideswipe long enough for a Viacon to get the drop on him. Clang. Ow. Hey. What the? Sideswipe found himself on the ground grappling with the Viacon, its claws going right for his optics. Hey, come on man, can't we talk about this? The Viacon reeled one of its hands back and was about to claw Sideswipe's optics out, but thankfully, Bulkhead arrived just in time to smash the Viacon off of the younger bot. The big green Autobot had the end of his arm transformed into his signature mace, the huge weapon being even bigger than any one bot's head. He eyed Sideswipe with a smirk and offered him a hand. What was that about, being more aware, Sideswipe? Sideswipe pouted and crossed his arms. That one didn't count. Yeah, sure it didn't. Now, if you'll excuse me, Bulkhead transformed his other wrist into a large laser cannon and turned to face the Viacons, who had since regrouped. Let's wreck and rule. Grah. Blam. 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 As Bulkhead ran with surprising speed, he unleashed a volley of laser fire on the Viacons, which while they attempted to counter, several of them ended up falling to the large blasts. The moment Bulkhead close enough, he actually jumped, taking the Viacons all by surprise before he landed right in the middle of their group. From there, Bulkhead began bashing his mace into even more Viacons, battering them around like rag dolls and slamming them into one another. He even blasted some at close range as well, creating clean holes through their bodies. With a strong kick, he knocked one of the cons down to the ground before slamming his foot on its chest. Baha, you cons really don't learn, do you? Best with the top dogs, you get bit. Bulkhead. The Autobot warrior's head snapped up at the sound of a collective shout, his sights snapping around to see the teens all coming toward him. Much to his surprise, Ajiro and Tenya were carrying Frenzy with them. What are you kids doing here? Bulkhead waved his hand to try and ward them off. Get away. It's not safe here. Kyoka and the others ducked behind a pile of nearby rocks before the earphone jack user called out to him again. We know, but we thought we should warn you, you may have a stowaway. Bulkhead's face scrunched up, more perplexed than ever. What are you talking abo? But then he cut himself off when he noticed the number of teens, and that a particular one was missing. Wait, where's Mina? Knock knock knock. Bulkhead's optics widened and he craned his head down, his chest panels shifting to open up his personal storage space. Sure enough, from out of it flopped Mina, thankfully in one piece. The pink girl breathed hard as her upper body limply hung out of the storage space, much to Bulkhead's disbelief. Mina. After a few more breaths, Mina glanced up to Bulkhead apologetically. I heaved on your floor mats. Sorry. Blah. As Mina fell over once again, but she had no time to relax as several of the Viacons came back, shooting at the two partners and taking them off guard. Bulkhead removed Mina from her chest and advised, hold on. Before charging at them once again, slamming his mace into one's head, caving it in. He then rammed his shoulder into the other one and shifted his mace for one of his cannons, shooting its arm off and subsequently its laser. He set Mina down quickly before rushing up and grabbing the Viacon by its throat. Mina, turn away. But, turn your head away. Bulkhead repeated before reaching his hand out to tear straight into the Viekan's chest. From there, he tore out several wires, internal systems and lots more twisted metal as he practically gutted the Khan, much to Mina's amazement. Whoa, as Bulkhead finished his handiwork, Mina plopped down onto her rear and let out a sigh of relief. Phew. Okay, lesson learned, I'm never doing that again. You shouldn't have done it in the first place. Bulkhead shouted, much to her surprise. What were you thinking, Mina? The other Autobots had also rushed up as well, with RC in particular wearing a disappointed expression. You could have gotten yourself killed. I'm sorry, I wanted to see an awesome fight and you just thought it was a good idea to climb inside me and tag along. Bulkhead continued, making Mina bite her lip as her head fell. What would have happened if I had gotten run through, huh? What then? As the other teens moved over to them, Bulkhead could see that guilt was already beginning to wash over Mina, so he sighed and dismissed it for now. We'll talk about this later, understand? Mina swallowed hard and got up to her feet, thanks to Kyoka and Momo helping her up. Yes. Jazz shook his head and tried to get things back on track. Okay, so aside from this whole incident, I think we've taken care of most of the Viacons. The lieutenant scanned the area and took note of what everyone else was doing. B and Strongarm are handling barricade, and Prime and Windblade are talking on Screamer and Swift. Izuku stepped in at that moment. How are they all doing? Looking pretty good, but we should still lend a hand. Jazz resolved. Prime's low on energon as is, so let's prioritize that fight first. Whoa, wait, hold up. Denki said concerningly. Optimus is low on energon. He's been hiding it. Sideswipe explained, watching as Prime continued to fire his blaster from a distance. Pretty well, but still, it's very noticeable. He's usually able to get in a fight more, but here, he's being pretty standoffish. Ajiro grit hit teeth, both in worry and at the fact that he was still carrying Frenzy. Aw man, that's bad. We gotta get him out of there and someone's gotta take over for him. Sunstreaker held up a finger to the redhead. Correction, we need to get him out of there. After that little stunt Mina pulled, you all are staying right here and… Wait, hold up, Kyoka interrupted as her jacks went up, her eyes closing as she focused. Does anyone else hear something? The others all perked their ears and audio receptors up as well, and before long, they heard the same thing she was. Yeah, it sounds like rotor blades. Momo deduced, only for her eyes to widen in alarm. Oh no. Someone's coming. That put everyone else on alert, the Autobots craning their heads skyward. Civilians. Why would they be coming this way? Bulkhead asked. Well, helicopter tours of the gorge aren't unheard of, but, Izuku started, only to be cut off when a loud voice suddenly echoed throughout the entire area, and it was very familiar. To all Decepticons, this is Agent Jacob Burns of Sector 7. Autobots, Decepticons and humans alike all set their sights upward and saw a black helicopter with the S7 logo on it come flying out from over the tree line. Specifically, it was an AH-64 Apache longbow that was decked out with weapons, with sets of missiles on both flanks while a gun emplacement was under its nose. Inside the cockpit, they could make out the silhouette of Agent Burns along with Agent Fairborn sitting next to him, the former's voice ringing out once again. I'm going to give ya 3 seconds to leave peacefully and get off out planet, or else I'm gonna give you all everything this bird has to offer. The group stared up at the chopper in disbelief as Kyoka facepalmed. Of freaking course. The moment Burns appeared in the scene, Optimus felt both a sense of relief and apprehension. On the one hand, more backup was much appreciated, but on the other hand, Burns had made a harrowing mistake with that ultimatum. If there was one thing that Decepticons liked to do, it was calling an enemy bluff. He reached for his comlink, attempting to tune into the copter's frequency. Agent Burns, take your aircraft and fall back to a safe dist. The Prime felt a hard kick impact him in his side, sending him clattering to the ground. Without wasting a moment, Starscream was over him with his sword drawn and one of his null rays aimed at his head. Oh, Prime, you really shouldn't get distracted so easily. Otherwise, dearie me, look what happens. Optimus. Windblade broke off from Swift and charged at Starscream, only for the Seeker commander to spin around and block her sword strike with his own. You get away from him right now. HM, I think not. Swift. Finish her for me while I deal with Optimus, but, after a few seconds of waiting, Windblade was still there pushing against him with no sign of his lieutenant. Swift. Any day now. Starscream lifted his head and saw the green femme, and she was just staring up at the helicopter. Ah, yes, of course. Just scanned something in the middle of a fight. Pay me no mind. But Swift just waved him off. Ah, don't get her crankshaft in a twist, Screamer, I'll be there in a sec. She smirked wildly as her optics became green. This'll only take a sec. From there, two beams of light came bursting out of Swift's optics and she scanned the Apache longbow, the aircraft schematics working its way into her processor and integrating them into her systems. Finally, with the vehicle scanned, WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHK. The cockpit in the center of Swift's chest folded up and over her head while her shoulders rotated inward and unfurled, forming the main body of her new alt mode. The pectoral panels on her chest meanwhile moved out to the side to form the stabilizer wings on the sides of the copter, while her forearms folded up and back to form a pair of air intakes on either side of the as well. Her orange propellers splayed out and took on the usual helicopter position while her legs came together and formed the copter's tail, the fins on her knees folding out as another set of stabilizers. A set of missiles appeared from her front stabilizers while a gun emplacement came out of the nose, completing her transformation. Haha. Alright. Aerial superiority, achieved, Swift declared as she flew up toward the other Apache, intent on taking it and its occupants down. Windblade gasped and cried, no. Before transforming into her jet mode, flying after Swift as fast as possible. Which left Starscream to do as he pleased. Huh. Well, now that she's out of the picture, perhaps we can, but his voice disappeared the second he turned back, only to be met with Bulkhead's face inches away from his. Hee, hello there, Thwomp. Ow. The green Autobot immediately smashed Starscream in the head with his mace, making the Decepticon stumble away. Prime. Jazz exclaimed as he slid next to his leader, helping him up with Bulkhead's assistance. You alright? As alright as I can be, Jazz. Optimus reassured. But, Izuku, where is he? I'm down here, Prime. The Autobot leader set his optics downward, seeing Izuku and, much to his surprise, the other humans as well. And what's more, he saw that Ajiro and Tenya were carrying an unconscious Frenzy. And we're all okay. Ochako wore a proud smile as she jerked her thumb toward Frenzy. Plus we took out this little guy. Optimus' metal brow rose up even more once he heard that. All of you managed to defeat Frenzy. Yep, and without killing him this time, too. Denki smirked, rubbing his finger under his nose. I think it's safe to say we learned from last time, huh? Indeed, impressive job, children. Now, we should get you all away before, incoming. Optimus lifted his head up just in time to see Barricade come charging their way, the officer bellowing in rage as he plowed through everyone. The Autobots and humans all managed to get out of the way, but Optimus still raised his ion blaster toward the renegade. Barricade, stop. Stop right there. Strongarm hollered, the cadet and Bumblebee sprinting up to the group with their weapons raised. I've had enough of your tricks, Barricade. The Decepticon spun around and narrowed his optics at her. And I've had enough of your insolence, Cadet, he spat back. Which is why I'm leaving. I just had to get something. He lifted up his hand, revealing that he had scooped up Frenzy. Or rather, someone important before I left. Ajiro and Tenya both did a double take, the duo gasping the moment they realized they no longer held the mini-con on their shoulders. Ah, that foul miscreant, Tenya exclaimed with his usual stiff arm chopping. He absconded with our prisoner. Barricade raised his finger up and it opened up, revealing a tiny taser attachment. He pressed it against Frenzy's head and a small jolt was delivered, one that made the mini-con wake up suddenly with his head snapping from side to side. Gah, what happened? Where am I? Wait, Barricade. How'd I get here? Frenzy paused the moment he noticed he couldn't move his arms, and he yelped when he saw what was preventing that. And when the heck is on my arms? Not sure, but, choom. Barricade ducked out of the way of several lasers before transforming, with Frenzy landing in his cab. We'll get that gunk off of ya later. Right now, we need to book it. Oh no you don't. Strongarm went to give chase, but was held back by Optimus and Bulkhead, much to her frustration. "Ah, Prime. Bulkhead. He's getting away." "I'm well aware of that, Strongarm, but you must take stock of the whole situation." Prime pointed toward where Barricade was retreating to, and Strongarm finally saw that Starscream had gotten back up, aiming his null ray directly at them. "Oh no, please, do let her come closer, Prime." Starscream implored with a smirk. "I promise I won't bite. Besides, if anything, you have bigger things to worry about." He nudged his chin up toward the sky. "Your human friends are in a tight spot, after all." The Air Commander spoke the truth, for in the sky above, Swift had made it up to her target's level. The two copters hovered in mid-air face to face before Swift spoke to them. "So, you like betting your life on vague threats, do ya?" In the Sector 7 chopper's cockpit, Agent Fairborn eyed Burns irritably. "Nice going, Burns. Now we're in for it." But Burns gave her a reassuring wave. "Don't worry, Fairborn, I make do on my word." He pressed a few buttons and yelled, "Fire!" Before all of the missiles on the copter fired off and flew toward Swift, with the gun emplacement on the front unloading its own ammo as well. However, something unexpected happened. Swift was able to outmaneuver every single projectile that came her way, dodging the missiles which went straight into the mountain instead. She also outsped the gun as a pair of jet boosters activated near her rear, which also allowed her to close in on her target unexpectedly quick. "Oh crap. Get away. Get away," Marissa urged. But it was too late. Swift closed in, flipped around so she was flying upside down, and then transformed once again. As she came down, her hands glowed green and she clawed at the S7 chopper's rotor, taking it clean off before grabbing the now falling copter immediately. As they fell, Swift reached in and grabbed Jacob and Marissa, pulling them out with a snicker. "Hee hee. All too easy, clang. Ow." Unfortunately for her, Windblade came flying in, transformed, and kicked Swift right in the head, forcing her to let go of Burns and Fairborn. Without missing a beat, Windblade reached out and grabbed them as she transformed back into jet mode, securing them while the chopper fell to the ground. And that, my friends, is how you pull off a successful rescue. She didn't receive a response as both Jacob and Marissa just stared into space, both of them visibly shaken. "Guys. Gia. No." Starscream exclaimed before the chopper crashed into the mountainside. "No." At that moment, Swift also came falling down near him, though she was able to use her propellers to hover in the air and land on her feet. "You fool, Swift. How could you have been blindsided like that?" "Hey, not everyone's perfect, Starscream." Swift snapped back as her hands glowed green once more. "But let me tell ya, this fight ain't over by a long shot." Might wanna make an addendum to that," Barricade said as he came revving up and transformed, with some still living yet heavily injured Viacons hot on his trail. "We're outnumbered and our soldiers who aren't dead are in need of some heavy repairs. I suggest a tactical retreat until..." But Starscream just got right in his face and poked him in the forehead. "I'm sorry, but who died and made you commander, Barricade?" He pointed toward the Autobots as Windblade came down and opened her cockpit hatch, allowing Burns and Fairborn to get out. "Send for more Viacons if you have to, we are continuing this battle." As Burns and Fairborn got out, they were met by the teens, who gathered around them worriedly. "Agent Burns, Marissa." Momo reached up and helped Marissa down, the older woman giving her a grateful smile. "Are you alright? You're not hurt, are you?" "Ha, no Momo, we're fine," Marissa said. "Just a bit shaken." At the sound of retching, though, the others were quick to see Agent Burns rush over to the nearby river, where he unleashed the contents of his stomach. The teens all cringed as Marissa made an addendum. "Well, maybe some of us more than others." It was then that she noticed Ochako and the others all gathered up as well, giving them a greeting smile. "Oh, and you must be the new kids on board, right? I'm Marissa Fairborn of Sector 7. It's nice to meet you." "Likewise," Mina returned. "But sorry that your plan didn't really go the way you thought it would." Marissa simply waved her hand at that. It's no biggie. Besides, we've still got quite the amount of backup coming." "Whoa, really?" Izuku questioned. "Is Agent Fowler coming or?" "Ah ha ha ha." Everyone let out a collective gasp as their moods brightened up considerably. They knew that bombastic laugh anywhere. Sure enough, a powerful gust of wind came blowing through the entire area, one that took even the Decepticons off guard. And with it, came the #1 hero himself, his incredible landing being the cause of it. Decepticons. You've picked the wrong people to mess with today. All Might proclaimed, his unrelenting smile present with his hands on his hips. Because I am here to put an end to this. All Might. The kids chimed in. Optimus sighed and smiled beneath his faceplate. Excellent timing, my friend. All Might gave them a thumbs up over his shoulder. Of course, the moment that Fowler told me about what was going on, I got changed and came as fast as I could. The symbol of peace set his focus onto Starscream, the Decepticon glowering right back at him. So, if I were a betting man, I'd say you're Starscream, EH. Starscream wore a cocky smirk and placed a hand over his chest. Indeed. And who exactly are you to address the great Starscream so casually, Worm? Behind him, Swift and Barricade rolled their optics, the former slapping her forehead. I'm glad you asked. All Might jabbed a thumb toward himself. I am All Might, the #1 pro hero in all of Japan, as well as the world's symbol of peace. While his smile was still unwavering, All Might lowered his voice to a more warning level. And just so we're clear on that, that means your trespassing is twofold. You're on my world, and you're in my country. And I would very much appreciate it if you leave, now before things get ugly. HMPH. So, that is how those costumed people refer to themselves, EH. Heroes. Starscream scoffed. How droll. Next you'll tell me that the ones that they fight against are villains, right? All Might raised a brow at him, and that was all the answer that Starscream needed. Oh, why am I not surprised? To think that I actually expected something more out of these people. In any case, All Might, you do not intimidate me. Lord Megatron may be wary of you, but I think of myself much higher than that. I actually recognize our race's superiority and am willing to prove it. A look of panic etched into Swift's face at that. Starscream, the pit are you doing? Hush, Swift, I'm on a roll. Starscream smirked before setting his attention back to All Might. To clarify, Megatron believes that the right power set can take a Cybertronian out, but I just think that your planet is all bark and no bite. All Might raised a hand and made a, come at me, motion. Is that right? Well then, would you like to test your theory against me? Let's see if it holds water or not. Barricade and Swift immediately tried to hold him back, but Starscream was far too quick. With pleasure. FWOOSH. The Seeker's rockets kicked on and he thrust forward his bursting speed, enough to make even Swift and Barricade stagger. Starscream's null rays began lighting up as he aimed them forward. Now die, hero. RC reached out and called for the pro to stand down. All Might, get back. You don't know what you're. RC. The pink femme snapped her head down to see Izuku, the young man wearing a confident grin on his lips. With all due respect, All Might's got this. The Autobots and humans watched as All Might widened his stance, balled his right hand and pulled back his fist, ready to deal the one and only blow he would need. Texas, SMAAAAASH. BWHAAAM. Just as Starscream had gotten within a meter of him, All Might brought his fist forward and punched the air in front of him, creating a massive wind tunnel that blasted forward and struck Starscream directly in the gut. GYA, ah. Swift and Barricade were left stunned as they watched Starscream get blown back, his own jets working against him as his legs were forced forward by the force of the blow itself. They had to dive out of the way as the air commander was sent hurtling backward and slammed back first into a massive boulder not too far away, hitting his head in the process. There was now a massive double wing-shaped dent in the stone as Starscream fell down, his optics rolling in his head. Ooh. Why yes, Lord Megatron, I would like to pilot the Purple Griffin, thank you. The two Decepticon lieutenants were left slack-jawed as the surviving Viacons stared at their fallen commander, and that's when All Might spoke up again. Would anyone else like to test their luck? Gah, that won't be necessary. Swift assured as she and Barricade quickly moved over and took up the disoriented Starscream, with a ground bridge opening up for them a second later. The Viacons all ran through the portal while the duo hobbled the fallen Seeker over to it. We'll just be taking our leave, if that's alright with you. Swift added with a nervous grin. Thanks for your time, meet ya later. Barricade said with finality as they hopped through the ground bridge, which closed behind them. However, it was then that Sideswipe brought something up. You sure we should just let the bad guys get away? Kinda seems counterproductive. Don't worry, punk, I actually thought of that. Strongarm smiled victoriously as she brought out a small device, which appeared to be some sort of tracker. I stuck a nano tracker on barricade back during our fight. Soon, we'll know exactly where they are, hopefully. Excellent thinking, Strongarm. Optimus commended as he steadily got to his feet, his optics moving over to All Might, who was being surrounded by the children. All Might, that was fantastic. Izuku cheered. Kyoka punched the air in front of her with a smirk. Ya really sent those Decepti creeps packing. Tenya bowed to him in appreciation, along with many others. We owe you for helping ward them off in such a manner. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened. All Might saluted back to the children with gusto. Think nothing of it. After all, it is my duty to protect you kids from the Decepticons with our Autobot friends. He shifted his focus over to Optimus, tilting his head curiously. And what about you, Optimus? You seemed rather sluggish back there. Prime raised a hand to him with a sigh. Yes, well, let's just say that there's been something I've been putting off for quite a while. At first, I thought it was nothing to worry about, but now after this, I can see that it's more concerning than I thought. He crouched down and offered All Might his hand. But we can discuss that back at base. For now, I owe you much, All Might. Thank you for your assistance in this battle. Of course, my friend. Always here to help. All Might raised his hand and coughed into it awkwardly. Ahem, although, we may want to take care of a little something before we head back. He gestured to the forest around them, and the group immediately noticed all of the small fires that had resulted from the attack. Because remember, only we can prevent wildfires. Ahahaha. And it's the end of Season 2 Part 4 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.